music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Just make sure you don't get...
Let me drive.
I will make a fool of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It is like being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pans will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs it close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you prime painted and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it?
what we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the return of the Grand Prix World Series. We are here for Season 2 at the Vancouver Grand Prix. We're kicking off Season 2 with a new format for you. We have introduced a second tier into this series. Tier 1 is full of the 13 teams that featured in Season 1 of the Grand Prix World Series, and Tier 2, which we will be running first today, will feature 13 new teams with some new team principals who are all in search of victory. Alongside me in the commentary box today, me, Topher Smith, is Tom Cairns. Tom, welcome back to the Grand Prix World Series. You must be excited for this one today.
Absolutely, Topher. And after the excitement of last year that saw the championship go right down to the wire between Jean-Eric Vergne and Brendan Hartley, it's anyone's game this season. And with some new circuits coming up this season as well, we could be in for a brilliant season of racing between the experienced drivers on the grid who have raced in the Grand Prix World Series before, and we've got a lot of newcomers as well, not just team managers, but a lot of new drivers have joined the series.
Well, as you mentioned, Jean-Eric Vergne is the reigning champion of this series from his 4-win route to the title in Season 1, and he's going to have it a lot tougher this time. So it's not just the 13 teams that are against him, it is the 13 new teams in Tier 2, and those are the ones we are going to be looking at first. But first of all, let's remind you of what the rules are for the Grand Prix World Series. It is made up entirely of ex-Formula 1 teams that never won a race. So the reigning champion team is BAR. We also have the likes of Manor, we have Arrows, Super Guri, Prost. We have so many Formula 1 teams who are always classified as the underdogs in the real world of Formula 1. And then the whole field is made up of ex-Formula 1 drivers that never won a race. So people like Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, not eligible for this series, as they obviously went on to win races and championships. But even though we have that criteria of drivers who never won a race, Tom, we have some drivers in this field who are absolutely more than capable of racing in Formula 1.
Oh, of course, and there's a lot of racers who have gone through the junior categories in their careers but couldn't quite make it to Formula 1 either because of the budget or because there's a lack of seats. Well, this series can very much show that they can most definitely challenge at the top level of motorsport, and particularly these Tier 2 drivers who are racing for these new teams. Well, we've got a hell of a battle going on between these young guns like Jose Maria Lopez, who has won the pre-season race at Watkins Glen last week, and could he be one of the stars of this season in Tier 2? Who knows?
Well, you mentioned there, Jose Maria Lopez winning the preseason festival last time out at Watkins Glen. That earned the Eurobrun team the 1 and the 2 for their cars. David Junt at the helm there, with his team taking victory at Watkins Glen and therefore setting themselves as the benchmark for today. Will they go on to take victory today? That remains to be seen. But Eurobrun, that is Jose Maria Lopez and Marcus Winkelhock in the second car, and should they need him, Robert Schwartzman is there in reserve. On to the second team in Tier 2 of the Grand Prix World Series, Zach Speed, Mike Smith's team, made up of Nick Heidfeld, who was a pole sitter in Season 1 in the very first race at Kyle Army, actually, although unfortunately did not go on to win a race that season. He is partnered by newcomer to the series, Sam Bird, the Formula E racer who's previously tested for Mercedes Formula 1. Esteban Gutierrez in reserve for Zach Speed. Now, HRT up next, Dario Franchitti in a number 5 and Suttle in a number 6. A lot of people thinking these guys might be one of the benchmarks. John Munro at the helm of this team, putting a lot of their preseason budget into power. And they have, on paper, the fastest car in the field. But do they have the most reliable, Tom?
I'd like to think they would do, and if the HRT back in the 2010 to 2012 period, if it was as reliable as that, then they could well be in the frame for scoring good points. And don't forget, they've got the promotion as well for the top 3 teams at the end of the season. They'll be hoping to be one of those 3 teams, John Munro's men.
Yeah, so at the end of the season, the top 3 teams from Tier 2 will be promoted up to Tier 1 for Season 3, while the bottom 3 Tier 1 teams will be sent the other way back down into Tier 2. Will one of those teams that gets promoted be Leighton House? Chris Cavani at the helm with the Judd engine and Yokohama tyres, with Alexander Wurz and Robert Wickens at the wheel for this team. Will Power is there in reserve should he be needed at any points in the season. Chris Buxton going for an all-British affair at Scuderia Coloni. Perry McCarthy, one of the stars of the pre-season festival, coming out of nowhere to finish in 5th place in that race. Alec McNish, although this time out-qualifying him for the opening race of the season. Jonathan Palmer there in reserve for the team. And now, Tom, the next one here, Pacific. A lot of people expecting these guys to be the benchmark. They have a very good lineup of Timo Glock and Daniel Kvyat. And at the pre-season festival, he ran Kvyat alongside Roman Grosjean, a reserve driver. And that was effectively a shootout that team principal Carter McCollman was running to see who would partner Timo Glock at the team. Glock, a 2-time race winner from Season 1. And Tom, on that occasion, Kvyat just getting the better of Grosjean in the pre-season festival and getting himself the race seat.
Yes, and I don't think that will be the last we'll see from Grosjean. I think we'll see him get his opportunity later in the season. But for Kvyat to get the opportunity alongside Glock has clearly paid dividends because from what we've seen in qualifying, Kvyat is going to be starting from the front of the grid in the Tier 2 category. So that could well be a brilliant decision there from Carter McCollman to put Kvyat alongside Glock at the Pacific team. But can they convert that into victory?
Well, putting it on pole is one thing, converting it into victory is another. Let's see how it plays out for the Pacific Grand Prix team. Next up is Life, with Andrew Sampson taking control of this team, going for an all-English affair of Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell, Marino Sato in reserve for that team if he's ever needed across the course of the season. We have the Real team up next with Ed Hunter going for Acer engines and Goodyear tyres. Mike Conway and Neil Jarney going for a sports car and Formula E lineup. They're very experienced in sports cars. Of course, both of us had their endeavours in Formula E and both have tested Formula 1 in the past as well. Oliver Turvey, the Brit there in the reserve driver role, hoping to bring his experience of being a reserve driver for McLaren for so many years to the team. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out for them. Modena, with Paul Twemlow taking up this team here, going for an all-American race lineup of Scott Speed. And Tom, this was an interesting choice here for Paul. The 86-year-old AJ Foyt making his return to Formula 1. What do you make of that one?
Well, we saw in the pre-season festival last week, I mean, we feared that he was going to be well off the pace in comparison to the others, but in actual fact, he wasn't that far behind at the end of the race. So I'm really looking forward to see how he progresses during the event here at in Vancouver. I mean, as you know, it's a North American event, so that might give him a little bit of encouragement going into the race. But you know, can he score points? Can he help Modena to glory. I think it's touch and go, but he needs to give Scott Speed some support as well, because I'm sure Speed will be looking to live up to his name. Yes, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but yeah, he will hope to live up to his name literally. But yeah, Modena, I'm not really expecting too much from them. I think they're sort of looking at mid-table, but what do I know? I could be wrong.
Well, Scott Speed was certainly one of the more aggressive drivers in the pre-season festival. Could he possibly spring a surprise today? We'll have to wait to find out to see whether he can bring Modena to the front. Hans Binder is in a reserve driver role for the Modena team. Is he going to be needed at some point this season? Well, we'll just have to wait to find out how this all goes. And next up, we have Ed Spencer, another newcomer to the Grand Prix World Series, taking on the Force India team. And another interesting American choice here, Tom, Al Unser Jr. He's getting into the higher reaches of the age range himself, but he's been brought back into a Formula One seat for this season alongside Italian legend Alex Zanardi. What do you reckon this lineup's going to do?
Well, Ed Spencer, he clearly wants to win. It's his debut season in the Grand Prix World Series. Alex Zanardi is a very inspiring one. Al Unser Jr., I don't think he didn't quite perform as well as we've hoped to have seen from him in the preseason festival, but at least it's given him the experience he needs before the championship gets underway here in Vancouver. So, can I see Force India progressing? I don't know. I think it's very hard to tell, but fingers crossed for Ed Spencer's boys.
Well, if it turns out that either one of these drivers are underperforming across the course of the season, they can call on Jack Aitken to race in their place, the reserve driver there for the Anglo-Korean. Next up is Ewan Gale's Welsh-led team of Fond Metal, operating out of Pontypandy for this season, and he's taken on an all-Brazilian lineup of Enrique Bernaldi and Cristiano De Mata. Bernaldi, possibly not so much famous for his speed in Formula 1, but more for holding up David Coulthard for however many laps at the 2001 Monaco Grand Prix. That seems to be what a lot of people remember that particular Brazilian for. And Cristiano De Mata, very accomplished driver over in the States, didn't get so much of a crack at it in Formula 1, but maybe that will change this season. And if either of them should be unable to race, Gaston Mazzacane, the Argentinian who used to race for Minardi, is in a reserve driver role. Two more teams to go here before we get underway at Vancouver. Andrea Moda brings on Season 1 40 Corse driver Taki Inoue, who didn't really do too much in Season 1, did he, Tom? He scored a few points here and there, but he's been given another bite of the cherry by Lewis Bassendale here. Do you reckon he might have a better season this time round?
I'd like to think so, yeah, and I think it'll help him enjoy his racing more now that he's alongside a good fellow of Vincenzo Spiri. And can I see Andrea Moda challenging for points? I think we will. I mean, to be honest, considering they're in the bottom tier, they can't go further down than that. So I don't think Taki Inoue's got anything to lose, to be quite honest with you. I think he's going to go out there and enjoy it.
Absolutely. What more can you do if you're at the back? Just go out there and enjoy the experience of driving a Formula 1 car. And Vincenzo Sospiri, one of the two drivers out of the failed MasterCard loader attempt from 1997, he's getting another crack at Formula 1, and will he make the most of it? Let's wait and find out. Karun Chandok there in reserve for the Andrea Moda team. And the last team out of the Tier 2 teams, and the disappointment of the pre-season festival, to be honest with you, Tom, a double DNF in Watkins Glen saw LaRousse taking up the numbers of 26 and 27, but this is a driver lineup that I reckon we should be watching out for across the course of the season. 2016 Indianapolis 500 winner Alexander Rossi, alongside Formula 2 star Callum Ilott. And Tom, while the results in the pre-season festival might not have suggested it, this is another team that I reckon we should be watching out for.
Yes, I could agree with that with you there, Topher. I think Ilott and Rossi demonstrated their speed in Watkins Glen. Obviously, it was such a shame for them to both retire, but it doesn't mean to say that they're not going to be in the mix for podiums and wins. I think we'll definitely see them right up there. And looking at where they were in qualifying, they were qualified very highly in 6th and 7th. So I think there will be two of the drivers out there who will be gunning for victories this season.
And Will Knight, the team principal of the LaRousse team, taking on Max Chilton in the reserve driver role for the season. That is your 13 teams for Tier 2 of the Grand Prix World Series Season 2. We're just about ready to go here for the start of the race. Tom, shall we get this underway?
Absolutely.
Right, let's go for it. So, round 1 in Vancouver, Tier 2 race is about to get underway. And let's start off with the full grid for today. Daniel Kvyat in the Pacific, putting it on pole position, a few tenths ahead of Jose Maria Lopez. There on row 3, we've got Timo Glock and Alexander Rossi ahead of his teammates Eilert, and Nick Heidfeld lining up in 8th position there behind Eilert on row 4. Row 5 sees Scott Speed and Sam Bird ahead of Neil Jarney and the Scotsman Alan McNish taking up the end of row 6 there. Row 7, Mark Blundell in Alive ahead of Perry McCarthy. The Leighton House of Robert Wickens on row 8 ahead of Scotsman Dario Franchitti. Row 9, we have Mike Conway ahead of Alex Zanardi. And row 10 will be Martin Brundle in Alive and Marcus Winkelhock in the second Eurobrun. He might have expected a better qualifying given the speed of the car. Christian D'Amato and Vincenzo Sospiri on row 11 ahead of Al Unser Jr. Enrique Benaldi there on row 12 in the Fond Metal ahead of AJ Foyt Jr. And we now go live to the track. Daniel Kvyat there on pole position ahead of Lopez. Adrian Sutton in 3rd ahead of Alexander Wurz. Who is going to get the best launch off the line? Are you excited for this, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm raring to go with this one. And Cam Kvyat convert his pole position and underway now.
Let's get going for Tier 2 of the Grand Prix World Series. And it looks like Lopez has beaten Kvyat off the line, but Kvyat's trying to hold it around the outside. Now looking down the field, and there's a little bit of argy-bargy down there, running on board from Vincenzo Sospiri. But it looks like, looking at the timers, Kvyat has held on to the lead ahead of Jose Maria Lopez. Suttil still in 3rd ahead of Alexander Wurz, and Heidfeld holding on to 5th. It looks like Kvyat, after initially bogging down a bit, has now got a good start and starting to pull a gap on Lopez behind him.
Yeah, so Kvyat continuing to lead there over Lopez, and this is a on-board view from the LaRousse. Is that Callum Eilert down the inside?
That's Rossi, and we've got a crash at the back. Zanardi has lost a wheel of Force India out on the first lap, and we're going to see a replay of that. Zanardi not getting as far into his race as he would have liked. He's behind the Real there and coming down into hairpin, and he's been hit from behind. We're not sure who that was by, but Zanardi taking a punt from behind and is now already out of this Grand Prix. We're now riding on board with Robert Wickens on the replay. Did he have a part to play in this accident? Let's have a look. And yeah, Wickens hitting the back of Zanardi, missing his braking points, and unfortunately has taken out the Italian.
Yeah, I would say that was a racing incident on that one. Obviously, very, very unfortunate for Zanardi in his first race in the Grand Prix World Series, and that's one of Ed Spencer's boys out of the running. He's not going to be very, very pleased with that for sure. But Danny Kvyat done what he needed to have done, convert his pole position, and he leads at the end of lap 1.
Very unfortunate for Zanardi, but of course that is always one of the risks of racing on lap 1. The cars are all bunched together. All it takes is one snatch brake, one missed braking point, and you're going to get an accident like that. I think I agree with your assessment there, Tom. I think that one was a racing incident.
Just interested to see if Lopez can stay in touch with Kvyat in front, and then Kvyat with a clear track ahead of him, continuing to pull away there. As Lopez just remains to keep in touch, and this is Nick Heidfeld in the sack speed under pressure. What looks like from Timo Glock in the other Pacific.
And unfortunately, we have cut away from that battle, but it looks like Timo Glock has indeed made the move on his former teammate, Nick Heidfeld. Both of them starting the season for Super Aguri in Season 1. Heidfeld's taking the first ever pole position, while Timo Glock went on to win 2 consecutive races that season. Although that was amidst the whole barrage of retirements for the German. He possibly could have retired. He could have won the championship had it not been for all of his retirements. But that's one of the things about the Grand Prix World Series. You're not only upgrading your power, you're also upgrading your reliability. And in the case of Super Guri last season, yes, I know this is my team. And Lopez has lost it. Just interrupting myself there. Lopez having a half spin out of turn 1 as he scraped the barriers. Going to get another look at that. He's trying to chase down Daniel Kvyat. Going around into turn 1. Looks like he rode the curbs a little bit harder and it's unset at the back end of the car. A little bit lucky not to get any damage there, but Lopez losing out 2 positions there to Suttil and Wurz.
Yeah, it was a costly error there from Lopez. Just clearly pushed too hard into turn 1 by riding over the curbs. Touched the barrier on the outside, which has obviously upset the balance. And around he went, and then he was lucky to only lose 2 positions there to the Hispania and the Leighton House. And now Kvyat's got an even bigger lead thanks to Lopez's error. And this is Alan McNish in the Coloni down the inside, what looks like the sack speed of Nick Heidfeld.
So Heifeld having a really good qualifying today, but unfortunately not the race pace at the moment, it seems. He's had a bit of a slow start here in Vancouver. Just looking into the YouTube comments, Dave Goddard has said that he feels as though in the opening lap crash that Zanardi moved over on Robert Wickens. I mean, of course, after the race we do review all of these incidents and any penalties can be applied as such. And if Ed Spencer of the Force India team there feels like he was a bit hard done by, he can, of course, appeal the fact that it was put down as a racing incident. So we will take all of those appeals into consideration. Any updates will go up onto the updates boards, and any alterations such as time penalties, grid drops, and we will keep everyone informed of those as the season goes on.
So just looking at Suttil defending his second place from the Leighton house of Alex Wirtz. Coming to the right-hander there, where Zanardi unfortunately had his incident with the other Leighton house of Robert Wickens. And this is another overtake from what looks like the LaRousse there of, is that Alex Ross who's just gone past him?
No, that was Callum Eilott getting past Nick Heifeld at the time. Heifeld is dropping it like a stone at the moment. He just appears to have no race pace at the moment. His qualifying was exceptional, putting himself well into the higher reaches of the top 10. And yeah, he's now dropped down into ninth place. He's got Scott Speed now behind him. So yeah, not going well for Nick Heidfeld at the moment. And just going back to a point that I was making earlier, Tom, about the Super Aguri team last season, who had Nick Heidfeld and Timo Glock. Glock won 2 consecutive races and was always up there fighting for victories, but retirement put him out of the contention fighting for the championship. And this is one of the things that a lot of the team managers need to think about in this series, Tom. You're not just trying to get the most power out of your car, but you're also trying to make your car reach the end.
Well, of course, and that that was demonstrated by the Prost team that I had managed last year. I think we retired from 60% of the races, and the majority of the problems were with reliability issues. As you can see, another overtake there from Neil Yarney down the inside. It's easy to overtake him. Is there a problem there with the? Is that the life that's just gone by there? Is that Mark Blundell?
Yeah,
or?
Mark Blundell just overtaken by Neil Jarney there, losing out to P11. Jarney making his way towards the point scoring positions.
Yeah, and go back to you saying about the reliability. I mean, reliability is ever so important in the Grand Prix World Series, and you want to have a fast car, but you need to make sure it gets to the end of races. And clearly, Tom Butterworth, the team manager of the BAR squad, clearly got it right last year with Jean-Eric Verne, and was victorious with both the drivers and the team's championships. Can he retain that in season 2? And we're now on to, I believe we're on lap 5 or lap 6 now of this Grand Prix World Series race here in Vancouver.
And Daniel Kvyat continues to lead now with a gap of 2.3 seconds over now Alexander Wurz, because it's shown on a graphic that Wurz has just got past Adrian Suttil. We haven't seen it on the graphic, as we are looking at Scott Speed getting past Nick Heidfeld. Heidfeld losing another position. And Tom, where has Heidfeld's pace gone? He just doesn't really appear to have the confidence in the car.
Imagine you could be on a heavy fuel load in comparison to the others, as Heidfeld, hence his pace so far in this Tier 2 race. And now, this is the Hispania of Adrian Suttil, beginning to touch the Alex Wirtz, and here is Scott Speed rider on board with, in 9th position, coming towards the end of the lap that they are on.
Currently on lap 7 at the moment. Daniel Kvyat now with a gap of 3 seconds. And going back to what we were saying about the power and reliability, John Munro of the HRT team, he elected to put all of his pre-season budget into power, not spending any money on reliability at all. And they've got a fast car with Suttil up there in 3rd, but are they going to get to the end of the race?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I'll be interested to see where Dario Franchitti is, because he's just been overtaken actually by Robert Wickens as I speak. Down the inside goes Wickens, and that's a very clean overtake there into that right-hander. We saw a lot of overtakes at that particular area last year, didn't we, Topher, where drivers were, we feared that on a street circuit like this that's so narrow, we didn't think that we'd be seeing so many overtakes, but now we are so far from this event as well as last year. And here with Vincenzo Sospiri, who's right behind there of the live car, by the looks of it.
Oh, that corner is the favoured overtaking position on this circuit. It comes off the back of a long straight where you can get into the slipstream and set up the overtake. And Sospiri, we're looking at from when they're down in the lower reaches of the field. He doesn't look like he's going to be challenging for points anytime soon. Wirtz, a tenth and a bit faster than Daniel Kvyat on that last lap, and Wirtz looking to close down the gap in the Leighton house. We still have a long way to go in this race, but Kvyat holding a lead of 2.9 seconds, and we're now looking at Perry McCarthy looking to make a move on Neil Jarney, and again into that corner he's made the move. And a textbook overtake there from McCarthy in the Colony. Jarney was fighting for the top 10 earlier, having passed Mark Blundell, but he's now dropped down a couple of positions as we now look at Alexander Wirtz as he looks to close down the leading Pacific of Danny Kvyat.
It'll be interesting to see what fuel strategies each of the drivers on, because clearly Kvyat could well be on a 2-stop, and it'll be interesting to see if any of the others are trying on a 1-stop, particularly Nick Heidfeld, who has been losing places with his speed that has been shown so far. And so Kvyat, a good couple of seconds clear of Wirtz in second place, and looking as though the Pacific could pick up the first Tier 2 victory, but there's still an awful long way to go yet. And there was just the one retirement so far. Alex Zanardi out of the race after a collision with Robert Wickens on the first lap.
And Ed Spencer has put into the chat that we have that he is going to appeal the incident between Zanardi and Wickens. So we will have a look at that after the race and decide whether Wickens was at a bit more fault than we first thought. It's a bit of a contentious one, really, because all of the cars were bunched up at the start of the race. Someone's going to get it wrong somewhere, and in this case, Wickens missed a braking point and hit the back of Zanardi. But at the same time, Dave Goddard made the point that Zanardi did move across on Wickens, so do you think it might have been a bit 6 of one, half a dozen of the other?
It's very hard to tell, because I don't think Wickens did anything wrong, if I'm honest with you. It's just a really unfortunate chain of events, really, and Zanardi was the innocent bystander of it all, but it's just racing sometimes. I'm sure Zanardi will get another opportunity to shine next time out in Taupo. And here's Alan McNish going really well in this race so far, actually. He's about to complete another overtake. I think that is he just overtaken there?
That was Timo Glock in the Pacific that he just made his way through. So we've got one Pacific at the front leading this race by now 2.3 seconds, and the other one fighting for 6th place with Alan McNish in the Colonian. Here's Alonso Jr. making a move in the other Force India, his teammate unfortunately stricken at the side of the road. And Alonso Jr. showing that age might not be a factor in this as he pulls off what appears to be a clean overtake.
Yep, and Alonso Jr. a really nice overtaking there on in that particular occasion. And here's Neil Jarney, who is currently in 13th place. He's dropped back a few positions over the last few laps. He's under pressure there by what looks like one of the... is that the other Sack speed of Sam Bird, who's just behind him?
That is correct, yes. Sam Bird's currently in 14th place. He's dropped down a few positions from his starting position of 10th. But yeah, Alan McNish up in 6th place. He started in 12th. He's having a fantastic run so far, passing the likes of Jarney, Bird, Speed, and more recently Timo Glock in the other Pacific. And his teammate Perry McCarthy is now having a look at Nick Heidfeld. I think you must be right, Tom. I think Heidfeld might be on a heavier fuel load here, going for the one-stop strategy, which will get you less time in the pit lane, but in this case it also appears to be costing him track position.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Heidfeld, it's just... I wonder how the one-stop strategy will work in comparison to the 2 stops because of the amount of time you lose in the pits. Now, I feel that should Heidfeld come in after all those that have made their first stops, will he get track position and keep hold of where he's at, and then that'll help him later on in the race. And who knows? And you can see Wirtz, I think he's beginning to close in slightly on Kvyat, but not so much, as Kvyat seems to be backing off and not wearing the tyres out too quickly. There's a long way to go yet in this one.
So well, there was a point earlier on where Wirtz was closing in at about a 10th a sector, looking at that time, so that's now stagnated at around about 2.3. So maybe just preserving the tyres a bit, trying to get to his first pit stop. He's got a good enough gap to Suttil behind him of about 2 seconds. So I don't think Wirtz is really feeling any pressure at the moment and not really feeling the need to surge after Danny Kvyat. I think he might be waiting for the first round of pit stops to see how that goes.
So, Danica Fiat leads ahead of Alex Wurz in second place, and it's Adrian Sutil in third, followed by Jose Maria Lopez, who was in second place at the beginning of this one, but after the first couple of laps made a mistake into turn one and has dropped down to fourth place. So in fifth as well, we've got the Alex Rossi in the LaRousse, followed by Element Nish in the Coloni in sixth place.
And Timo Glock, having been overtaken by Alan McNish running in seventh, he's dropped to 1.4 seconds behind McNish now, not really making any headway back into that gap. Callum Eilert in the LaRousse running in eighth place, showing what he can do. He wasn't really able to make the most of the pre-season festival after both of the LaRousses retired from that event. Scott Speed's doing well in ninth ahead of Mark Blundell, who is up into 10th place past Nick Heidfeld, who has now dropped out of the top 10. And yeah, if he is on the one-stop strategy, it's not really working for him at the moment. But back at the front, Wurz has closed in again on Danny Kvyat, now up to 2.1 behind. So we're saying about Wurz maybe wanting to preserve his tyres a bit. Was he maybe just, giving Kvyat a bit of a false sense of security?
It's a very difficult one to tell. I think we'll see how far he can go in comparison to Kvyat. If he's going longer, that could help him, because if other drivers are pitting him before Wurz, that'll give him the track position he needs for when he comes out in the battle between him and Kvyat. And you can see Scott Speed right behind. Well, it looks like Callum Eilert for 8th place, and no, he can't quite do it there. He stays behind the LaRousse. Speed, I'm actually looking forward to see how Speed does this year, because I've got a feeling that he could be one of the surprises in Tier 2.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Tom. Scott Speed, I don't feel as though he really got that much of a fair crack at it in Formula 1 in real life. He was a part of the Red Bull Junior program and got his debut with the Scuderia Toro Rosso. And he did show flashes of brilliance on occasion, although they were few and far between. I reckon with a bit more time, a bit more experience, he could have been an absolute force in Formula 1 had the opportunity presented itself. But that is one of the pitfalls of Formula 1. You could be among the best drivers in the world, but if you don't get the opportunity, then you're not really going to show what you're made of.
No, and yeah, it means, the whole nature of the Grand Prix World Series is consistency. Even though we may not be fighting for wins all the time, try and get the best result possible. And here's Speed. Can he finally make the overtake on Eilert? He can. And that's 8th place there for the American driver, who I felt he did a really decent job at the Toro Rosso back in 2006 and 2007, but we never really saw... And this is Robert Wickens
Tom. Robert Wickens retiring from the Vancouver Grand Prix. The Leighton House has pulled over to the side of the circuit with what looks to be a mechanical issue. And that's not going to bode well for the Leighton House team. Wickens also retired from the pre-season festival with a gearbox issue. And it's happened again here today by the looks of it. Wickens out of this race at his home Grand Prix. Meanwhile, his teammate Wurz holding up honours for Leighton House in second place. How far is he going to go in this race? Hopefully to the end.
Yeah, not a good sign for the Leighton House team and for Chris Cavaney. He's got to hope that Wurz gets to the end of this one, relying on him to add the team's first points of the campaign. And even a second place finish would do for Alex Wurz, but you know what Chris Cavaney's like, he doesn't accept second best, all he wants to do is win. Well, Danica Fiat is in the position where Carlton McCollum would most definitely love him to be, and that's in P1. And the gap at the moment now between him and Wurz is over 2 seconds again, so the gap just seems to be stagnating between those two.
This is one of the brilliant things about the Grand Prix World Series and the Retro Racing Managers League in general. All of our team managers that we have on board with us are super competitive. None of them like to finish second. They all want to win, and this is what keeps it so competitive and so exciting between the team managers. Everyone wants to win. Everyone's taking it seriously, trying to put in the best they can into making their teams better. Not just in the Grand Prix World Series, but also in our 1990 Formula 1 season we're running at the moment. We also have touring cars on the go at the moment, and hopefully coming up at some point soon, we're also going to be starting an IndyCar series. And all of our team managers very excited about those and all willing to win. Vincenzo Sospiri heads into the pits, as does Al Unser Jr. from 21st and 22nd. That looks to be the first of the scheduled pit stops.
Cristiano D'Amato is coming as well. He came in just before those two, so these must be the first scheduled stops of the Grand Prix World Series, and they'll rejoin right at the back, probably just before Danny Kvyat comes round to lap them. But they will be on fresher tyres, so I'd like to think that they will pull away from Kvyat. They'll probably go a lap down actually, because Kvyat's just gone over the line. And Wirtz is in the pits from second place. Let's see how his stop goes. Or is he going to go on? Is he going on a 2-stop strategy here, Topher?
So Wirtz putting in 18 laps of fuel, which will get him to around about lap 35, which is just past the halfway mark here. So maybe 2 stops, maybe 3 stops. It depends on how much fuel he puts in at his next pit stop. But is he maybe trying to get a bit of an undercut here on Daniel Kvyat by pitting earlier? Daniel Kvyat holding on to the lead of this race. He must have a need to pit soon. Sutil 4.9 seconds behind, so Kvyat's only real opposition at the moment is Alexander Wirtz. And can the Leighton House make the most of the fresher tyres?
So Wirtz coming out in 12th place behind Neil Yarni, and it looks as though he's got some clear track ahead of him, which is not good news for Danny Kvyat, because he's stuck behind back markers as well, particularly Al Alonso Jr., the sole surviving Force India, just ahead of Kvyat. Kvyat's probably just lapped him, but he's going to be losing so much time. And well, there's one car that's just exited the pits there. That's one less car for Kvyat to negotiate. But like I was saying, he's going to be stuck behind the Force India of Al Unser. Doesn't seem to be holding up too much though, so that could just be very much the nature of being on older tyres than those who've just pitted.
And also on the road is Vincenzo Sospiri. Both him and Alonso Jr. have pitted, so Kvyat is going to have to try and catch them and overtake them on track. Now looking at Jose Maria Lopez, third in the Europe run, the winner of the pre-season festival, and he's having another good run here today. Currently running a third, but a net 4th place if you take into account Alexander Wirtz's pit stop. Wirtz, as you say, Tom, down in 12th at the moment, just behind Neil Jarni. He's joined onto that battle that Jarni is having with Perry McCarthy and Nick Heidfeld. Wirtz not really getting that clear air now, so he wants to get through traffic, riding on board with Taki Inoue, one of the lower drivers from Season 1, now racing again here in Season 2, down in 18th place. Not really spectacular, but he is still running, and he's not absolute last of the runners at the moment.
No, and Inoue, as I mentioned earlier, he came in to enjoy it, and he seems that he's enjoying it so far. And so looking at Adrian Sutil, he's also about to be coming up to the back marker there. It looks like one of the Modenas that he's coming up. But yeah, he's not losing too much time behind it. Kvyat, I don't know how close he is to back markers now, because I'm sure that Wirtz is going to be putting out all the stops at the moment. The gap at the moment between Wirtz and Kvyat is 27 seconds, which is probably enough for an undercut to be completed by Wirtz to take the lead once Kvyat comes in for his first stop.
I reckon it's going to be pretty close between those two. Danny Kvyat's having a superb race so far, but coming up to traffic, Al Unser is still ahead of him. And I can imagine that the Russian Torpedo, as he's known, isn't going to be at all happy with the fact that the back markers are not getting out of his way. I would say that this is helping out Alex Wirtz, but Wirtz is having his own problems in traffic. He's just overtaken Neil Jarni for 11th place. Nick Heidfeld is up next in 10th, and Heidfeld was on a heavier fuel load earlier, but now obviously on the lighter fuel load than Wirtz, but with old tyres, about 20 lap old tyres now. So Wirtz should be able to pass the German easily, but he's going to be losing time getting past him. And here goes Kvyat making the move on Alonso Jr., putting a lap on the American.
Yeah, it looks relatively easy there, did it, for Kvyat, and had to take a tighter line into the corner as well, which won't have done him any favours really. Here's Wirtz, who's about to complete another overtake. That looks like the zap speed of Nick Heidfeld. We're too far back to have a go here, so probably have to wait another lap. I think the good thing about this circuit, Topher, it's a very short lap as this one, and plenty of overtakes you could do at that particular bend.
It is a street circuit that does indeed invite overtaking. If you think about places such as Monaco, for example, Monaco being a very famous circuit, but nigh on impossible to overtake on. Vancouver, still a street circuit, but has those different characteristics of actually presenting overtaking opportunities, as is happening here, and that is Marcus Winkelhock making a move on Taki Inoue for 17th place, I think that was. And here is Winkelhock's teammate Lopez running in 3rd place, driving very solidly at the moment. He took victory in the pre-season festival, and he's looking for a podium here to kick-start his first campaign in the Grand Prix World Series. He's got to get past the likes of Suttil if he wants to get that podium once all the pit stops are played out.
Yeah, and the gap between Lopez and Suttil is less than 2 seconds at the moment. And here's Wirtz down the inside here, look, on Nick Heidfeld, and this should be a slam dunk manoeuvre for the Austrian. And there you go. So Wirtz getting the hammer down to put the pressure on the Pacific team and Danny Kvyat. And this is Suttil getting held up behind AJ Foyt, who is being lapped after pitting. And Lopez is in the pits now from 3rd place. So Lopez, this is a chance for him to complete an undercut actually on the Hispania. I want to see how his pit stop goes. We do get a chance to get a camera view of the Eurogrunt.
Unfortunately, the TV director not cutting to that pit stop at this particular time. Perry McCarthy also going into the pits. And looking at Alexander Wirtz's progress versus Kvyat, that traffic has not really done the Leighton House any favours. And oh, we've got a big shunt here. So that Lopez hitting Heidfeld. I think that was as as Lopez was coming out of the pits. Heidfeld retires as a result. But yeah, Lopez had just pulled into the pits, and to me, Tom, that looks like Lopez has exited the pit lane right into the path of the Zach speed.
Yeah, and we had this same issue last year, didn't we? Which wasn't really addressed very well. And Sutter's in the pits now from 2nd place. Now, that's not going to... I think he could well be safe, actually. Kvyat's in the pits as well, so it's a battle of the pit crews here. Kvyat will get out in front of Adrian Suttil. Now, where is Alex Wirtz? Because he's going to come down the start-finish straight very, very shortly. And it looks like Kvyat is putting on more fuel than Wirtz did, who came in earlier. So Kvyat going on a longer second stint. Where is he going to come out in regards to the battle between him and Wirtz? Coming out of the pits now.
Oh, Kvyat there having a bit of a moment coming out of the pits. Sorry to cut across you there, Tom, but Kvyat getting the back end all out of shape as he exits the pit lane, which won't really do him any favours on a new set of tyres, but he is out ahead of Wirtz. That is the main thing. Oh, we've got a huge shunt here, and that is Scott Speed, and I think that's Dario Franchitti. Was that another one of the pit exit crashes, I wonder? Franchitti losing a wheel out of that, and Scott Speed, I think Speed had just been into the pit lane, and has he gone out into the path of Franchitti just like Lopez did on Heidfeld?
It looks as though they did. I'm not a big fan of this pit exit thing because we've seen a number of accidents last year in the Vancouver Grand Prix, and luckily no one retired. But in the space of a lap, 3 have gone out thanks to that pit exit of the Vancouver circuit. And here's Glock hitting him from the lead. At least he's gone further in this race than he did in season 1 when he was racing for Super Aguri whilst he was in the lead.
Yeah, don't remind me, Tom. Don't remind me about Super Aguri's retirement this last season.
Oh, come on. You won 2 races in Birmingham and Helsinki. I mean, come on. You've got to give him that much credit.
Yeah, well, you know, I never like to see my cars retire. But anyway, Callum Ilott now leads the Grand Prix, albeit without having pitted so far. And going back to these pit lane exit accidents, you were correct, Tom, in saying that we did have those same issues last season. One of the things about the Grand Prix World Series is we let some of the team managers vote on which circuits they like to see, and Vancouver, despite having its issues with that pit exit, was a very popular track. The team managers enjoyed the racing that we had and felt as though that maybe those pit lane accidents were just a one-off. It might be better in Season 2, but it is happening again, so maybe this might throw the future of the Vancouver Grand Prix into doubt.
And yeah, we don't want circuits to, spoil racing, or the nature of circuits spoiling racing by seeing cars crash into each other as they exit the pits. It's not part of what racing should be. And sometimes it's a trial and error thing when we're going to different race circuits. But yeah, Vancouver, for me, I actually voted no for the circuit for that reason. But it just seems that everyone voted otherwise. But I think now, I'm just hoping we don't get a repeat of it anymore from either this race or in the Tier 1 race later on.
Well, going back to the actual racing itself, Callum Ilott does lead 1.2 seconds ahead of Danny Kvyat, and here is Ilott's teammate Rossi making a move on Jose Maria Lopez. Now, I believe that Rossi has pitted, I think, so that is a pure overtake for position, and we're now looking at the net race leader, Daniel Kvyat, who has got himself a nice gap now to Alexander Wirtz. Wirtz was held up throughout the pit stop phase. Kvyat now getting held up by Callum Ilott in the LaRousse on older tyres, and Kvyat is going to want to dispatch him as soon as possible. Half a second behind across the line. Ilott not yet pitting. Ilott's going for a very long first stint. Could he possibly be going towards a one-stopper, maybe, Tom?
It's possible, and I think it depends where he comes out in terms of track position, but I can imagine that Kvyat's going to be right on the gearbox of the LaRousse and complete the job into the right-hander where we've seen a lot of overtakes. Here we go, look, Kvyat down the inside of Ilott.
And Kvyat needing to do that to be able to maintain his lead. And here is Alexander Wurz coming under pressure from Adrian Sutil. And we're getting a replay on board from Danny Kvyat in the Pacific, getting past Callum Ilott for the lead of this race. So Kvyat, not just the net leader, now the actual leader in the Pacific. He continues at the front of this field. And Sutil does indeed make the move on Wurz. Wurz was challenging for the lead earlier, but being held up in traffic earlier on. He's now since lost out. And we have an engine blowout there for the other Force India of Al Unser Jr. Enrique Bernaldi doing what he can to get around that ailing Force India. But Al Unser, his first race in the Grand Prix World Series, now looks to be coming to an unfortunate end.
And not good start to the season for Ed Spencer and the Force India team. Alex Sinardi already going out of the race after contact with Robert Wickens on lap 1. It looks as though that Al Unser Jr. is not going to even make the 27th lap, or 28th lap, I should say. But yeah, it's back to the drawing board for the team, and hopefully next time out in Taupo they'll fare better. And Al Unser not pulling to the side of the track soon enough, really, but I'd like to think he will do very, very soon. He's holding up there. Is that AJ Foyt who's just holding up there?
It's fellow American AJ Foyt, the 86-year-old, being held up there. Foyt's finally making his way around the ailing Force India. But yeah, not a good start to the season for Ed Spencer, and that surely to him will be an indication of putting more money into the reliability of the car for round 2.
Yeah, and I can imagine with whatever budget he's got left, he'll probably want to put it on reliability for the next event in Taiwan. Here's Al Unser Jr. pulling off at the same locations where Timo Glock pulled off last season, Topher. Sorry, I had to wind you up there.
Oh, you just had to bring that up, didn't you, Tom? You just had to mention it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not get started on your prosts. But anyway, Al Unser Jr. retires from the Vancouver Grand Prix. Such a shame for Ed Spencer and the Force India team. They were hopeful of a strong start to the season, but unfortunately just not having the reliability to get to the end of the race just yet. Looking at the live chat that we have, Ryan Ward. Hello, Ryan Ward. I've noticed you've been commenting a fair bit on this race. How can you do these as a team manager? Well, this is run by Downforce UK, who have journalists across all forms of motor racing. We have Formula 1 journalists, Formula E, we've got people doing touring cars, we've got an IndyCar editor, and we all come together to put this race together on Grand Prix 2, made by Jeff Crammond. And we do all of these run to AI races. All of the drivers are put in, all of their figures are put into how fast they are. And Taki Inui there, getting past. I think that was a Coloni there, maybe.
He gone by him really easily, didn't he? I'd be interested to see if there was a problem with the Coloni there. It looks very, very unusual to see a car go past. We'll find out shortly if that Coloni's encountered a problem. Was it Perry McCarthy or was it Alan McNish that was suffering there?
I didn't quite catch who it was. I was looking more at Taki Inoue. I think it was, must have been Alan McNish, as he just pulled into the pit, so maybe he had an issue of some sort, maybe an electrical problem, which he'll need to go into the pits for. The Coloni team can do a simple Control-Alt-Delete and he will be on his way again. Going back to what Ryan Ward was asking about getting involved in these are all run by Downforce UK people.
And Lopez is in trouble, Topher. Sorry to interrupt, he's got an oil leak.
An oil leak for Lopez, and he's on fire. The Eurobrun going up in flames there. The winner of the pre-season festival out on lap 30 of the Vancouver Grand Prix. And, well, he was in contention for a podium and running a very strong race, but unfortunately, that is a retirement for the fastest of David Junt's cars.
I just hope he hasn't left oil on the racing line, and that's where cars tend to overtake as well. So Lopez towed away there by the marshals. And as you can see, Adrian Sutil there looking content in third place. So that's the 7th car we've lost from this race. So down to 19 runners. So we've lost Jose Maria Lopez, we've lost Al Unser Jr., Scott Speed, Dario Franchitti, Nick Heifeld, Robert Wickens, and Alex Zanardi. So down to 19 runners then. AJ Foyt in 18th place, and Taki Nuri down will move up into 19th once he's gone by Lopez's stricken Euro run.
So an unfortunate end to the Grand Prix there for Jose Maria Lopez, looking to be one of the favourites for a podium in this race. But Danny Kvyat, he continues to lead with a gap of 1.3 seconds ahead of Eilert, but Eilert's still yet to pit. We're now about to start lap 32 here. Kvyat's coming up to lap AJ Foyt, and here is Alan McNish looking to make a move on Martin Brundle, again into their favourite overtaking position. And you made the point about there possibly being oil down on circuit from Lopez's blowout, but McNish completed that move without any issues.
Yep, and on these fresher quadruplet of boots, if that's the right term, for his, brand spanking fresh set of tyres for Alan McNish. And here's Alex Wirtz catching up to Suttil again. So in fact, he lost a position to Adrian Suttil in the stops, didn't he, Alex Wirtz? So he needs to make up for lost time here. So there's only one Hispania and one Leighton House left in the race.
And Wirtz not really having a good run of it throughout that pit stop phase. He was fighting Danny Kvyat for the lead earlier on, closing into within 2 seconds of the Pacific. But yeah, throughout the pit stop phase, he got caught in traffic and lost out massively while trying to do the undercut. And he's now 7.1 seconds behind the Russian. And Alan McNish now looking at Marcus Finkelhock. McNish really having a good race here today. He went up from 12th on the grid up to around about 6th place earlier on, and through the pit stop phase has dropped down again, but he's now making more moves to the field. And here is Danny Kvyat stuck behind AJ Foyt. Foyt should be getting out of the way. Kvyat now pulling out of the slipstream. He's going to make the move on the American and puts a lap on him. Callum Eilert will be hoping to get through just as easily as Kvyat did, but backmarkers don't really seem to be showing any incentive to get out of the way at the moment.
No, we saw that last year, didn't we, in Season 1 with Antonio Felix da Costa in the Lola, who was holding up the Syntex and the BARs in the closing stages, if you remember, Topher, when Greg Sanson was commentating on it. It was absolutely hilarious in terms of the way he picked up on it. When you watch it back, it's absolutely hilarious to watch. But it was a brilliant entertainment, nevertheless. But yeah, Callum Eilert's doing a really, really strong job, actually. I think part of why he's keeping up with him is because he's on the lighter fuel load now than the Pacific driver. So Callum Eilert having a very, very strong race so far in the La Rose. And in the pits comes Alex Wirtz. Now, that's very early for a second stop.
Alexander Wirtz, I think that is an unscheduled pit stop there for Wirtz, because he had a lot more fuel in the car than that. I reckon he was going on until around about lap 38, 39 maybe. Unless this is a strategy call by Leighton House to get him into some clear air on fresh tyres. Maybe they've called him in early. We haven't been able to ride on board with Wirtz. We don't know if there was a problem or not. He's now going to drop down into the further reaches of the field. Suttil putting in 4/10 of a lap faster time than Danny Kvyat last time round. So Suttil looking to eat into that gap that Kvyat has over him. D'Amato coming into the pits as well on lap 34. I reckon that's a scheduled pit stop, as does Vincenzo Sospiri coming into the pits. So maybe it is time for a second round of pit stops, Tom. Maybe a few drivers are just electing to come in a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and we've got a car in the pits now. Eilert's in for what looks like the only stop of the race for him, so it'd be nice to get a shot of him. Martin
Brundle, sorry to cut across there. Martin Brundle having a bit of a lock up there through turn 1, but he's kept the life out of the wall. He's kept life in that car. Excuse the pun. Anyway, Callum Eilert down into 6th place on the graphic, having come into the pits for what appears to be his one and only stop. We are at about the halfway mark of this Tier 2 race. Mike Conway also coming into the pits from 11th, riding on board with Adrian Suttil, currently faster than Danny Kvyat at this stage of the race. He's got a gap of 5.4 to the Russian ahead of him, and Alexander Rossi in 3rd place, down 9.9 seconds on the lead. And we're now looking at Mark Blundell looking to make a move on... Oh, sorry, no, that's just him putting a lap on the Andrea Moda. I thought that might have been him making a move for 6th place. But he is 2 seconds behind Callum Eilert. So Eilert on the fresher tyres. He's got some space ahead of him with Birds 6 seconds up the road. So Ilott can now get the hammer down, get after Kvyat's lead.
Ilott's got a great opportunity to win this race now, and with the clear track in front of him, he's got a great opportunity to complete the undercut on Danny Kvyat. Now, I don't know how many laps Kvyat's got left before he makes his second stop. I don't think he has that many left. In fact, Sunbird's coming to the pit, so that will make Callum Ilott's job much, much easier. Now that's one less card to negotiate, and this is Alex Wirtz right behind what looks like, I'm just looking at the timing pages, he's now up to 7th. It looks like, is that a back mark he's trying to get by?
It is a back marker, that's him putting a lap on Taki Inoue. Inoue being a little bit of roadblock here. We had Mark Blundell being stuck behind the Japanese earlier on, and now Wirtz has made his way through. Wirtz now on fresher tyres, having come into pits a couple of laps ago. And Suttle here, he was starting to close in on Danny Kvyat a bit, but that gap now appears to have stagnated. He's around 5.4 behind Danny Kvyat, and going across the line, that's up to 5.5. So Suttle now falling away from Kvyat, and Kvyat looking very comfortable here for at least a podium. But you make a good point in that Ilott now is a real contender for this race, and this is becoming a fantastic strategic race, Tom. We have some cars on the 2-stopper, we've got Ilott on a 1-stopper. Nick Heidfeld, as we've seen, is trying out a 3-stopper, but he's now way down the field, so it looks like this is a straight fight between the 1-stoppers and the 2-stoppers.
Yes, and did you see Taki Inoue beginning to get in the way of faster cars there? He's obviously been so used to it when he was in the 40 last year for Dave Goddard's squad. And now, yeah, Callum Ilott's, he's only like, was he 6 seconds behind Timo Glock at the moment now, easing into the gap between him and the German. So yeah, I have to say that Ilott is very much in play for the race win from here on in between now and the end of the race, and Adrian Suttle continuing a good race in the Hispania, and this is a move, I believe that's just Niriani lapping Taki Inoue.
So Inoue going another car down in the I think he's down at about 20... No, he must be in about 17th or 18th at the moment, taking into account the number of cars that have retired from this race, 7 of them if I remember correctly. Going back to what I was saying to Ryan Ward, who has been commenting on this race, if you want to get involved as a team manager, please send an email to downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. Someone will pick up that email and will get you involved as a team manager. We do have a full roster for the Grand Prix World Series for this season, but we might be able to find you a space in any of our other series. Just get in contact and we will sort you out. Looking at Adrian Suttle now, 2nd place. He's closed down again on Danny Kvyat. He's closed in half a second over that last lap. It's now 5.0 to the Russian. Is this going to be a late charge from Suttle maybe? We've got about 28 laps to go here in the Tier 2 race of Vancouver. And Michael Gillespie asking in the live chat, don't refer to them as tiers because of the pandemic. I mean, Tom, I think the Retro Racing Managers League was probably one of the best products of the pandemic. Not that I want to put any sort of positivity on the pandemic, because it's obviously something that has affected the entire globe. But given the situation that we have been faced with, the Retro Racing Managers League coming together as a result of us being in lockdown the first time around, and it has enabled us to come together as race fans and enjoy some simulated fun together.
Yes, and the pandemic has totally influenced us at Downforce to put together the Retro Racing Managers League. The first race was the South African race in Kyalami for the Grand Prix World Series on the 19th of March, so we're coming up to a year anniversary, and this is Alex Wirtz. It looks like it was just lapping a back marker there. But it's it's been a fantastic series as well, the Retro Racing Managers League, with the Grand Prix World Series, the first season of it, followed by Group C. We've had touring cars, which is still ongoing at the moment, because we've still got that change. And this is Martin Brundle in trouble there in the life.
Martin Brundle pulling his life to the side of the circuit. No life left in that car, unfortunately, and that looks to be mechanical. So maybe a gearbox problem on the life there. That is yet another retirement out of Vancouver. And sorry, Tom, continue with what you were saying there.
Yeah, and there's still the touring car season to complete as well. I think we're about 4 rounds through that, and we've got another 6 rounds to go in that. So hopefully we'll complete that as well, because we've enjoyed that. And we've got the Indy racing, which we've still got some vacancies for team managers to fill in, which we all very much be looking forward to in the coming weeks. So if you are someone who's wanting to get involved, then do email us, of which Topher will remind you again what that email address is.
So the email address that you need to get in touch with, it is downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. Send us an email, get in touch, and we'll get you involved in the Retro Racing Managers League. Phil Kinch suggesting in the live chat, how about League 1 and League 2? I mean, Phil, this isn't football, come on. This is a much better sport than football.
Well, it doesn't mean to say you can't call it League 1 and League 2. Or call it Division 1 or Division 2, I don't know. Well, do you think the Tier 1 and Tier 2 system works? I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it being called Tier 1 and Tier 2 personally. I completely get Michael's points in that it does remind us of the pandemic. But to be completely honest, given that the Retro Manager Racing League was a product of lockdown, I don't really have so much of a problem with it. But it is something we can look into, and if we do come up with a better name for it, we will make the due alterations to that. And getting back to what we were saying about the Retro Racing Managers League as part of lockdown, one of the better races that we've had out of this, we've had some fantastic racing, where we've had all sorts of different fights from Grand Prix World Series in the 1990 season. But more recently, we ran a race for the Great Ormond Street Hospital, the Le Mans Classic, we called it, where we had 124 laps of the Circuit de la Sarthe, the full Mulsanne Straight and everything, and we raised almost £400 for the Great Ormond Street Hospital through that race. So we're not just in it for the racing, we're also in it to do our part and make contributions to the amazing nurses that are working all the way through the pandemic, and every single nurse out there, every single key worker, every doctor, we thank you all for the effort that you are putting in.
Michael Gillespie's coming with his latest suggestion is RML Premier League and RML Championship for our team. I think we've got to come up with something a little bit more catchy than Tier 1 and Tier 2. It doesn't feel like, you know, a relevant term for motorsport. It feels more like a relevant term for more like football or wherever. How would you go about doing it? Maybe to sort of find a sponsor and then name the division under its sponsor, and it just gives it a better identity. What do you think, Topher?
Well, that's exactly what we've done in the 1990 season. We have the GoBobby.UK Cup, which is for the pre-qualifying teams. The way that season works is we have our main 10 teams, the likes of Ferrari, McLaren, Tyrrell and so on. They're all entered into the main race automatically, and then we have 13 teams who are pre-qualifying teams, and they all compete for the GoBobby.UK Cup. Go Bobby being one of our many sponsors here at Downforce Racing. And we're getting a few more suggestions coming into the live chat. Michael suggesting RML Premier League and RML Championship, as you said. Phil Kincher suggested Group A and Group B, a bit of a nod to rallying there. And yeah, I think we probably need to have a chat with all the team managers and maybe even put it to a vote. What would you prefer? Do you want to keep us Tier 1 and Tier 2? Do you want to maybe go for Premiership and Championship, League 1, League 2? There's so many different options we can go for here, and you know, it's not just down to me. I like to take suggestions from everybody, so I reckon we can all get together after this race and have a proper chat as to what we can call it going forward.
I think for the sake of continuity, if it's named Tier 1 and Tier 2, I think we should just keep it for the season, and then for the future seasons we can rename it if need be. That's not a major issue at the moment. So going back to the racing here, Neil Yarni trying to lap. Now, is that AJ Foyt who's just trying to lap? They were attacking anyway. Couldn't really tell he was trying to get by there. But the Danica Fiat continuing to keep hold of command of the race at the moment. Can't quite tell what the gap is between him and the second place Mantover. You'll have to fill me in on.
So Alexander Rossi currently running in second place, and there is a gap of 15.6 seconds. Sutil going through the pit lane, and he's dropped down to 5th place ahead of Wirtz, but behind Eilert. So Eilert still making his one-stop strategy work. He's now half a minute away from Danny Kvyat, and if he closes that gap down to around about 25-26 seconds, I reckon Eilert has a good chance of jumping the Pacific instantly later on. And Timo Glock in the second Pacific now comes into pits as well, as does Mark Blundell in the Life. We're starting to see a few more pit stops now, and here's Callum Eilert stuck behind Vincenzo Sospiri. To Eilert, that's not what he needs at all. He does not want to lose any time at all here, because as does everyone else in this field, he wants to win this race.
Eilert, continuing to make inroads into Kvyat's margin after getting by Sospiri. You can see Alex Rossi in second place, and Kvyat's coming in for his second stop. We want to get a view of that, and I think Rossi's coming in as well, actually.
So Rossi into the pits, as is Benaldi, and here is Kvyat, 24 laps, so Kvyat is now going to end, but he's been held up by the fond metal of Enrique Benaldi. That's not going to do Kvyat any favours. That would be an absolute godsend for Eilert if he can make that count in getting past. And I'd love to see what Kvyat's doing when he gets out of the pits. I think he has held on ahead of Eilert, he has indeed. So Eilert is now up into second place, but Kvyat now on the fresher tyres, and theoretically on a similar fuel load to Danny Kvyat as well. And riding on board with Marcus Finkelhock down in 13th place, the sole remaining Europe run after Lopez's hopes went up in flames earlier on. Back at the front, Eilert now with a gap of 5.4 behind Danny Kvyat. So Eilert gave it his all, but it's not quite enough there. Kvyat now the hot favourite to win this race with the fresher tyres.
And only mechanical trouble will stop Kvyat from winning here in Vancouver.
You've said it now, Tom. You've said it.
But I think you've got to give credit to Colin Eilert though in this one, because he's made the strategy work after starting 7th on the grid. He's managed to find himself effectively in second place, depending on Suttil and Vert's pace on the. I mean, Vert, he's done 2 stops already, but is he going to pit again for a 3rd time? You would think so, wouldn't you?
We'll have to wait and see on that one. I think he might be coming in for one more pit stop later on, but he might try and extend it to the end. We'll have to wait and see. Tom Butterworth, our reigning team manager champion here in the Grand Prix World Series, he's the head of BAR, who took the drivers and the constructors title last season, has made a suggestion. Can we call the top group the haves and the bottom group the have-nots? Tom, come on, Tom.
Yeah, well, maybe call it something like the hops and knots.
I mean, I said earlier that we should have a proper serious talk about what to call it, but I think this is now descending more towards the silly, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, as we've already mentioned, it's not a major issue in terms of what we name each category. As long as the racing's fine, then nothing else matters. We can see Perry McCarthy right behind what looks like Mike Conway. So he's side by side with him, and he's got the move done, and up into the points goes the Brit.
A lovely move there from Perry McCarthy. McCarthy was one of the stars of the pre-season festival. I mean, when we were talking about all of the drivers beforehand, McCarthy was one of those drivers that we thought might not really be in for a good season. He's in the Cloney, which so far has actually been proven to be a really good car so far, but we're thinking that McCarthy might be slower than McNish and might be in the lower reaches of the fields, but he finished 5th in the pre-season festival, and he's now fighting amongst the points here in Vancouver.
Yeah, and he's shown his racecraft once more as McCarthy. Started 14th, which was respectable, and he's keeping his nose clean and up into the points in 10th place. So just giving you your race order, Danny Kvyat leads ahead of Callum Eilert in second place, and it's Adrian Suttil, as you can see in your picture, in 3rd, with Alex Vert right behind him in 4th. That's going to be a tasty battle for the final podium spot. Then it's Alex Rossi in the second race in 5th place, followed by Alan McNish. Timo Glock is 7th ahead of Sam Bird, Mark Blundell and Perry McCarthy rounding out the top 10 point scorers in this Tier 2 race in Vancouver.
And at the moment we have 13 drivers still on the lead lap, the last of those being Joachim Winkelhock in the Europe run. D'Amata and Benaldi out of the top 15 have been lapped, and Kvyat is extending his lead over Callum Eilert. Eilert on the used tyres, he's been on them a lot longer than Kvyat. Eilert came into pits around about lap 35, so they're around about 13 laps old now, whereas Kvyat pitted 2 laps ago, much fresher tyres, and he's making it count at the moment. He's doubled his gap since he came into the pits, and he's only extending it further. And Suttil now within a second of Callum Eilert, And here is Danny Kvyat. He's stuck behind Winkelhock. Trying to pass up in. Oh, Winkelhock pulling across Kvyat there. That is not at all sensible there from the German. And maybe one for the stewards to have a look at, Tom.
It was quite naughty there from Winkelhock there, because he knew where Kvyat was and he nearly cut across him when Kvyat was less than a car. And Wirtz comes in for a third time. So I don't know whether this has been... I don't know if he had a problem earlier. I think he did have a problem earlier, because I would imagine the team didn't refuel him when they were restarting the car. So Wirtz falling down the order with his pit stop and could... I think he'll bounce straight back on the fresher rubber, but he's going to fall out of sync with the likes of Kvyat, Eilert and Suttel.
So Wirtz, they will put enough fuel into the car to go to the end of the race. Now 18 laps remaining in the Vancouver Grand Prix. Wirtz rejoins in 8th place behind the Zach speed of Sam Bird. And Bird making his debut in the Grand Prix World Series with Mike Smith at the helm of the Zach speed team, bringing on the experience of Nick Heidfeld from Season 1, a pole sitter at the opening round of Kyalami. And Sam Bird, very successful in sports cars and in Formula E. And now in the Grand Prix World Series being given his chance at Formula 1, and so far running 7th, only 6 seconds behind two-time race winner Timo Glock in the Pacific. So Bird having a very solid run at the moment. Can't really say the same about his teammate Nick Heidfeld though, who was attempting the 3-stopper, but as a result Tom has lost track position and is now down in the lower reaches of the field.
Yeah, and Wirtz has got a mountain to climb as one of the cars in the pits. It's Alan McNish who's coming in for what looks to be his final stop. That'll move Wirtz up into 7th. I'm trying to see how far Wirtz is behind Sam Bird. In fact, I don't think he's too far behind him, Topher.
No, he's within a second of the Zach speed ahead of him. Hopefully the TV director will cut to him. Ooh, another potential pit lane incident there. That is Perry McCarthy behind Taki Inoue. As McCarthy was coming out of the pit lane, he almost tripped up over the Japanese. And yeah, as we were saying earlier, Tom, I think maybe we need to have a bit of a discussion as to the future of the Vancouver Grand Prix. Because it is a fantastic circuit for racing on, but if we're going to have these consistent problems of cars exiting the pits into the path of other drivers, maybe we should have a rethink about this track's future.
Yeah, and there's another race in North America or in Canada where we could possibly go to that doesn't quite have the unusual issues with the pit exit, then so be it. We'll have to have a rethink of it. And here's Enrique Binoldi, who we've not seen a lot of in this race. He's running in 13th place in his first race back in the Grand Prix World Series since Brno, in fact. Brno was the last event he was in last year before he was booted out by Ben Johnston when he was the team manager of Midland. Callum Eilert keeping all the 2nd place there. He's done a very good job today as Callum Eilert, keeping his Larus up there ahead of Adrian Suttel's Hispania. And
sorry, go on, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say Danny Kvyat's lead looks to be over 10 seconds now, so Kvyat looking very, very comfortable in the lead and looking very, very strong with only 15 laps to go in this one, and Kvyat's just coming up to another back marker.
And with Enrique Binoldi, as we let's talk about him as we for once see him pop up on the screen. Binoldi, I think, was probably the most disappointing of the qualifiers. He qualified down 24th, 0.4 of a second off his teammate Cristiano D'Amata. But to be fair, Binoldi has put in a bit of a better race performance and is even running ahead of D'Amata now. They're in 13th and 14th are the Fonmetal teams, Fonmetal drivers, sorry. So with a few more retirements, maybe Binoldi could even steal a point here, as Mike Conway is coming under threat from Alan McNish. McNish has pitted recently, so he's on the fresher tyres and is looking to make his way back up towards the top 10. But not only will he have to dispatch Mike Conway, he'll then have to catch up to the back of Neil Jarney and make the move into 10th place, where his next target will be Perry McCarthy, his teammate. And we've cut back to our battle now as McCarthy gets the run down the inside of Mike Conway and again into that corner which all the drivers absolutely love to have a go at. Perry McCarthy in the Coloni makes the move, Alan McNish in the Coloni makes the move on Mike Conway into 11th place, and his next target is Neil Jarney.
And McNish absolutely fine. He's enjoying his overtakes, isn't he? In the Coloni. He's had a good first outing as McNish. in the Grand Prix World Series. He didn't compete in last year's, but he's looked like one of those who deserves to have the right to be competing in a championship like this, as AJ Foyt gets that for a second time in this event. Kvyat looking very, very content in the Pacific. He seems to be enjoying that car so much around here in Vancouver.
Well, AJ Foyt, the 86-year-old who has been brought back into Formula 1 by Paul Swemlow, he's now 2 laps down, but he is still running. He hasn't retired yet, he hasn't had any mechanical issues. He did retire from the Watkins Glen event to the pre-season festival, but this time round, I think he's just enjoying the experience of being back in a Formula 1 car. And going back to what we were saying about the future of Vancouver, Phil Kinch has been in contact via the live chat. He said that there are tracks also in Toronto, Edmonton, and of course Montreal, the track that we all love on its own island in Canada. But there's also a different version of Vancouver. I don't know how many of you know this. There are 2 variations of the Vancouver racing circuit. This is one of them. And then the other one is the same area of the city but follows a different layout. So one possibility there, Tom, is maybe we could stay in Vancouver but just try a different circuit layout.
Well, yes, and as I've already mentioned before, it's trial and error really. Try it once and, see if it's okay, and if it's fine, okay, we'll race there again. And then we get more of an idea as to how these circuits work in terms of, how Grand Prix 2 works for it. And if it's good racing, okay, fine, we'll stay there. And if the team managers are very, very happy with these cars racing around the streets of Vancouver, well, whichever circuit, I should say, and then we'll race there again. So Danny Kvyat there, right on board there. This is a lovely camera view of just seeing all the activity involving the driver's hands, his facial expressions as well inside that helmet. This is a cracking view, isn't it?
Oh, I absolutely adore this camera view. Any of the onboards that are on this particular game, Grand Prix 2, absolutely fantastic camera views. You get right up close to the action with some of the onboard cameras as Kvyat puts another lap there on Taki Inoue. So Kvyat working his way through the traffic. And going back to what we were saying about the calendar, this is round 1 at Vancouver calendar, and there are upcoming rounds. We have some cracking tracks for you this coming season. After this race, we will be going to Taupo in New Zealand, a little bit more of an unknown circuit to Formula 1, but it proved to be a popular event last season, which was won by Marc Genet in the Minardi. That particular season, the team was being run by Alex Goldschmidt, this time being run by T-Pot, who's taken up the reins of the Minardi team. Then after Taupo, we are staying in the Oceania area and heading to Adelaide in Australia, an absolute fan favourite of that circuit. A lot of people wishing Adelaide would make its way back onto the Formula 1 calendar. And here in the Grand Prix World Series of the Rickshaw Racing Managed League, we're doing it. Adelaide will be round 3 as Callum Ilott is under attack from Adrian Suttle, and Suttle makes the move through. The HRT takes the Larousse for second place. The tyre life on Callum Ilott probably now playing a factor, as he's only been on 1 stop. He pitted close enough to 20 laps ago, and Tom, it looks like that tyre life is now starting to show through.
Yeah, and that move had been coming for some time. I mean, Suttle sticking to Ilott like glue there, and his patience paid off. Now, but he instantly how far Ross is behind Ilott. I think he's only like, was he 5-6 seconds behind his teammate now?
Yeah, he's not too far behind, but this is actually looking very good as a whole for the Larousse team. They've got a car in 3rd and a car in 4th. So putting behind the disappointment of the double retirement at Watkins Glen, Larousse and Will Knight is now looking very good for a double points finish and a high double points finish as well.
Indeed, and he'll be very, very pleased to see his team bouncing back from that disappointment in the pre-season festival. But the pre-season festival, you don't get any points from it. That was just to determine the car numbers for these Tier 2 teams. I'm pretty sure that Will Knight will be happy with today's outcome. And Perry McCarthy in 9th place in the Coloni, his teammate Albert right behind Ilion. You can see there, look, those two coming into turn 1.
Oh, Tom, sorry to interrupt you. Danny Kvyat has retired from the race. The race leader is out, and he's lost it all on his own. He's spun in the final sector of the lap, and he's got rear wing damage by the looks of it. And with rear wing damage, he can't continue. And yeah, you can see there with the marshal pushing the car away, the rear wing is gone. And Daniel Kvyat, the long-time race leader, looking like nailed on for victory here, is out.
That is so strange. I mean, I'll tell you something, that was similar to how Scott Dixon spun, except that Dixon didn't hit the wall, Kvyat did. And that's such a costly mistake there for Danny Kvyat and for the Pacific team. Oh yeah, he's hit that really hard, hasn't he? Yeah, that's a really
he just lost the back end coming through the corner, tried to carry a bit too much speed. He didn't really need to push that hard though. He was in control, he had the gap. All he needed to do was just make sure that the car got around to the end of the race. But maybe he's lost concentration, maybe he's lost a bit of grip in the tyres, but whatever the reason, Danny Kvyat has spun his way out of the lead and out of the Vancouver Grand Prix, meaning, Tom, this battle we're looking at now between Adrian Sutil and Callum Ilott is for the race victory.
We're going to be in for a thrilling finish now with Sutil in Hispania. He's the only one left as well, with his teammate David Franchitti already out of the race. And Callum Ilott, even though he got overtaken by Sutil, will very much be sticking to him like glue, as Sutil did with him a few laps ago. And this is Alex Rossi in third place now, so both of the race drivers in podium positions. And in fourth place is Timo Glock with Alex Wirtz in fifth, not too far behind those two, so there could be a battle for fourth place in the closing stages. Sam Burden sixth for Zap Speed ahead of Mark Blundell, Perry McCarthy, Neil Yarny and Alan McNish in the final points paying position.
So Timo Glock in fourth place. He's now going to look to uphold the Pacific honour. Carter McCollman, the team principal of Pacific, no doubt will be absolutely devastated with his driver Danny Kvyat throwing away the lead and the race like that. And bear in mind, Tom, Danny Kvyat was chosen over Roman Grosjean to be in the race seat because of his performance in the pre-season festival. And he's done well in leading the race, but he's ultimately thrown it away.
Yeah, well, I think Carter McCollum, shouldn't really judge a driver just on the basis of one event. I mean, it's one of those occasions, I think, sometimes you push too hard and sometimes you can end up feeling too relaxed inside the car because you're leading by so much and, trying to, pull a fastest up or something. But there's plenty to come from Kvyat. I don't think that will be I don't think that should be a sign of things to come. He's a fantastic driver. It's shown in today's event that he's got what it takes. He's got that pole position as well, so he has got the speed. He has got the racecraft. It's just a really one-off occasion for him. He'll be back in Taupo stronger than ever. And this is McCarthy in a lap on what looks like is that Taki Inui or is it Vincenzo Sospiri? It's one of the.
I believe that was Taki Inui again, being lapped by the opposition, and Sutil now holds a real advantage with only 6 laps to go here at Vancouver. He's got Callum Ilott behind him, but Ilott, on the one-stop strategy, his tyres must be getting very close to their bursting point. Now, not that I wish to put any sort of a jinx on Callum Ilott and the LaRousse team, but when you go for a one-stop strategy, and especially around a circuit like this where tyre wear can be quite high, Callum Ilott will now be nursing those tyres to the end, and will he want to push for an assault to the victory? I mean, the racer in him would say yes, but he's got to think about his strategy and making sure that his car does get to the end.
Yes, and Sutil's not really pulling away that much actually, and they're coming out to back markers as well, so that could have a say on the race as well. And with Rossi's pace as well in third, he could very much come into play, couldn't he? And it's not too far off these two. I mean, he's probably too far back at this stage, but once Sutil and Ilott negotiate the back markers as they are approaching, Rossi will very much close in on them.
And just going back to what we were saying about the calendar that we have for this upcoming season, we just told you that this is round 1 in Vancouver, then we've got Taupo of New Zealand in round 2, and then Adelaide for round 3. Going down the rest of the calendar, Tom, we've got some fantastic races coming up. Sepang will be back on the Formula 1 calendar in the Retro Racing Managers League for round 4, a very, very popular circuit there in Malaysia. Then we're heading off to Fuji in Japan, which hosted the Japanese Grand Prix in Season 1, which proved to be the scene of some massive heartbreak for the home hero Takuma Sato, who looked like a good shout for a victory there before an unfortunate retirement. Then after Fuji in Japan, we're heading to Chennai in India for a second time. Kyalami, the season opener of Season 1, will now be round 7 before we head to Istanbul in Turkey. And following the Istanbul Grand Prix, Tom, we will be holding a young driver test, which will be an opportunity for the team to field their reserve drivers, while also picking another potential Formula 1 racer from anywhere they like. So maybe they could take on an up-and-coming Formula 2 or Formula 3 racer should they meet the criteria.
Yes, and we saw it in Brno last year. We saw so many drivers get the opportunity. I mean, I had Felipe Nasr and Stefan Sarazan be given a go, but yeah, they didn't get their full-time race drive as a result of it. But I know some team managers decided to make changes to their squads, and you can see Adrian Sutil pulling away now. I think he pulled out a bit more of a gap on Isla actually through that back marker of that AJ Foyt that had just gone by. I think it may well have been, but yeah, it's we're coming towards the end of the race now. We've got, what is it, 5 laps to go, 4 laps to go for the leaders.
We now have 4 laps to go here at Vancouver. Going back to the young driver test, I fielded Alexander Wurz and Luca Giotto in the young driver test. Giotto not really doing enough to impress me, and oh no, there's an engine fire there for Alexander Rossi, and there goes the Roos's chances of a double podium. I mean, we were talking up Will Knight and the team earlier on, saying this is a fantastic opportunity for them to get a double points finish, then becoming a double podium with Danny Kvyat's retirement. But now, quite literally, Tom, those hopes have gone up in flames.
Yeah, very, very disappointing there, and reliability problems hitting the LaRousse team once again. And I missed hitting the curve there in the Colonies, moved up to 9th place courtesy of Rossi's retirement. Conway up into 10th. And Alex Wurz up into 4th, Timo Glock up into 3rd place now in the Pacific, so the Pacific team could still get a podium out of this, courtesy of Glock. Now here's Bernoldi, who will be moving up to 12th very, very shortly. He's under pressure from Manfred Finkelhock. It's a tasty battle going on between those two by the looks of it, so maybe not for points, but at least for prize, nevertheless.
Well, there will be an element of pride in the Fondmetal team, because unseen on the cameras, Cristiano D'Amata has made his way past Enrique Bernoldi. So, as you say, Tom, it's not for points, but it will certainly be for pride within the Fondmetal team. Just to finish off our calendar run through for the rest of the season, after the young driver test in Istanbul, we'll be heading to the Birmingham Super Prix once again. Birmingham becoming a very popular venue to go to in the Retro Racing Managers League. We've done it in the Grand Prix World Series, and we also ran it in the 1990 Formula 1 season for the GoBobby.UK Cup. Following on from Birmingham, we'll be heading to Imola for round 10. After that, Magny-Cours in France, and then Hockenheim in Germany for round 12. A couple more in Europe as we go to Estoril in Portugal, followed by Brno in Czech Republic. And then 2 American rounds to finish off the season. Buenos Aires in the South American country of Argentina, followed by, for the 2nd year in a row, the season finale at Laguna Seca in California.
I mean, Laguna Seca...
Oh, sorry, Tom. Sam Bird has pulled off the side of the track. We're 3 laps away from the end of the Vancouver Grand Prix, and Sam Bird in the Zaxbyard has pulled off the side of the circuit with a gearbox issue. That is such a shame for Mike Smith and the Zaxbyard team. Heidfeld was already out of contention in this race, and Bird was looking strong to pick up some decent points for the German team. And we've got a fire on someone going through in front of him. I didn't quite catch who that was, Tom, but it looks like with just a few laps to go here, we're starting to drop out.
Yeah, they're going out like flies, and we need to see who that engine failure was. Is that a Cologne there? Perry McCarthy! Oh no!
McCarthy's having such a strong start to the season. He showed what he could do in the pre-season festival, and he was running very strongly in the points here as well. He pulls off the circuit, and that is such a shame for the Cologne team. They've still got Alan McNish running in 6th place, but Perry McCarthy, he definitely deserves some points here today, but just not to be as we head on to the final lap of the Grand Prix.
Mike Conway's just made a pass actually on Neil Yarney for 7th place, so he's made up a few positions in these last few laps as well. And here is, this is Timo Glock actually. I nearly said Danny Kvyat for a moment, he's already out of the race.
Let's not remind Carson Coleman of that.
Okay, well, that's not winding up. But yeah, we should be getting Adrian Sutil in our picture as we are on the last lap.
And Neil Jarney on fire.
now
Another one drops towards the end of the race. And Gianni was looking good for some points as well, and his engine has gone kaput right towards the end of the Vancouver Grand Prix. And this was promoting the likes of D'Amato, Winkelhock and Benaldi into the points. Who would have thought that a few laps ago?
Who would have? And this is Suttil who's about to complete the final lap as well, Topher.
So Adrian Suttil coming around the final corner now. He might have benefited from the fortune of those around him, but he's kept his head down and gone and got the job done. Adrian Suttil wins the Tier 2 race at the Vancouver Grand Prix. It's the first win of the season for John Munro in what is, on paper, the fastest car on the field. It hasn't got the reliability, theoretically, but Suttil's done well to make it through to the end, and he takes victory here at Vancouver. Callum Ilott, on the one-stop strategy, finishes a very, very good second place for the young Brits, taking LaRousse to a podium in their first time out in the Grand Prix World Series. Timo Glock bringing some pride back to the Pacific team. They may have lost the victory today, but Glock bringing home a podium for the team and for Carter McCollum. There's some consolation for them at least. Alexander Wurz, he's had a bit of an eventful race today, but he comes home in 4th place. So that is 12 points for the Leighton House team. Mark Blundell finishes in 5th for the Life team. He's had a bit of an anonymous one today, but he did well to come home in 5th place. Here is the full race results. Alan McNish having a really strong race to finish in 6th from 12th on the grid. Conway 7th in a Real, and D'Amato, Winkelhock and Benaldi all benefiting from late retirements to all finish in the points. A double points finish there for Ewan Gale and the Fond Metal team. Vincenzo Sospiri just missing out on points there in 11th. Headed McCarthy, Gianni, Inoue, Foyt, Bird and Rossi, all the ones who retired later on in the race. And then the retirements, Kvyat, Brundle, Lopez, Unser, Speed, Frank Hitty, Heidfeld, Wickens and Zanardi, who was taken out in that unfortunate lap 1 incident with Robert Wickens. We will have a look back at the footage of that to see if a penalty does need to be applied. But there is at least 1 point there for Danny Kvyat as he takes home the fastest lap. In this series, that is worth 1 point. So Kvyat still on the board, as well as his pole position points there as well. So, Tom, a good start to the Tier 1 season there with a strong victory there for Adrian Suttil. What did you make of that one?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very much worth the wait. It's such a shame, obviously, for those who just dropped out towards the end, most particularly Alexander Rossi, Sam Bird, and Neil Yanni as well, because Neil Yanni was very close to a points finish. But for those that benefited, particularly Fond Metal, so very well done to Ewan Gale for getting his cars to the end. Very well done to the driver that won the race. I forgot who it was now. Adrian Suttil. There's so much that happened in the last part of that one. Yeah, Adrian Suttil for the his Spaniard team. Very, very well done to him and to John Monroe, getting him to the end. And but yeah, that's just the beginning. We've got a long, long way to go yet still, and we've got the Tier 1 race to come.
Yep, that is only half of the broadcast done. We still have the Tier 1 team race to come. We're going to take a short break, but make sure that you stay with us for the Tier 1 race coming up in about 5 minutes' time. See you then.
Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It is like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when you run so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this. And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darren Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
You gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem
It's that
is?
you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own. Please let me race.
fine. Then let's race.
Right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready for Tier 2. Tier 1, sorry. So we just spent the whole time talking about Tier 2. As all these going through our mind. Sorry, we're going on to Tier 1 now of the opening round of the Grand Prix World Series Season 2. We're staying at Vancouver for the Tier 1 race, which is being fought between all the teams that were in the first season of the Grand Prix World Series. And Tom, this one, there's a lot of pride at stake. These are all mostly team managers who know what they're up against in this series, and they want to be the best. So how do you see this opening round and this season of Tier 1 going?
Well, they're all very familiar with how it works, and the majority of the drivers, particularly the likes of Verne, Hartley, Janae, De La Rosa, Kobayashi, they all know how it all works, except the change with this new Tier 1 and Tier 2 system, the lowest 3 teams out of the 13 end up going down to Tier 2 for next season. So if you know you're not going to do well, or as well as those at the top, you've got to make sure you don't finish 11th or below.
And let's take a look at the 13 teams that will be contesting Tier 1, starting off with the champions, the benchmark in this championship. Tom Butterworth once again heads up the BAR team with Season 1 champion Jean-Eric Verne leading the team. He took 4 wins across the course of the 15-race calendar last time out, plus an additional podium, 3 pole positions and 2 fastest laps. And rejoining the team is Sebastian Buemi. He was dropped partway through Season 1 in favour of Pascal Wehrlein after a number of driving errors. He span out of numerous races, and as a result, he was dropped but brought back into the team. And Tom Butterworth employing the Dutch Nick de Vries, a now star of Formula E, as a reserve driver. And up against BAR are our second top team, Manor, headed up by Sam Hall. Brendan Hartley, the Season 1 vice champion, leading the team there with 3 wins to his name from last season. And an interesting choice in the number 4, Tom Cruise, who was signed after his discovery that Red Bull had actually offered him a proper test at Willow Springs, meaning he was eligible for the Grand Prix World Series. But we do have a release here from Sam Hall, the team principal, saying that Tom Cruise is actually only in for today. We were under the impression that he was in for the season, but as it turns out, Tom Cruise has entered into the Grand Prix World Series to get some footage for an upcoming film of his. So after he's finished this race, it doesn't matter where he finishes, his seat for round 2 onwards is going to be taken by IndyCar star Marco Andretti, who's previously tested for Honda. And bringing on Tom Cruise was a big news story ahead of the Grand Prix World Series, but as it turns out, he's only going to do the one race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that he was drafted in the first place, to be honest with you, because I thought it was going to be Davide Falsecchi to begin with, because Sam did confirm that when the season finished last season. But then he obviously took a different route by bringing in Tom Cruise, and now he's bringing in another Nico Marco Andretti, which I'm quite surprised about. But, you know, best of luck to Tom. I'm sure he'll want to put on a really good show. And who knows, could he actually win today's event, which I think is going to be tough in 24th position.
A part of me thinks that Tom Cruise, having now experienced Formula One in a qualifying environment, may be feeling a bit out of his depth, because he is an accomplished racing driver, don't forget. He's been very successful in various national series that he's entered, but now entering Formula One, maybe just a bit out of his depth. And part of me does wonder whether maybe that's just an excuse to get Tom Cruise out of the car. But, you know, that's just me being a little bit sceptical. We'll have to wait to see how he goes in the race. It turns out that maybe it could turn out that he would have a really good race. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Moving on to the Arrows squad. Emma Butterworth, the wife of champion Tom, heading up this one. A nice little husband and wife battle going on through Season 1, continuing into Season 2. Kamui Kobayashi, a 2-time race winner in Season 1, once again partnered by Nico Hülkenberg, who took 4 podiums across the course of Season 1, but not that elusive maiden victory just yet. Hopefully that won't mirror real life too much. Hülkenberg, regarded as one of the best drivers in Formula 1 to never win a race. Maybe that could change this season. And now, Tom, onto your team, the Prost team. 2 race victories for you, 1 each for Pedro De La Rosa and Jaime Alguersuari, and you stuck with the same driver lineup.
Yeah, I felt they did a satisfying job throughout the whole last season. I mean, reliability did hit us last year, and saw both of the guys suffering issues. But in terms of racecraft and what they've produced for me, has convinced me enough to keep them on. I just didn't think, why do I need to change my driver lineup when they're both performing as well as they can be doing? I mean, they've got a Grand Prix win each. They've both finished on the podium more than once. And which helped the team finish 4th in the constructors, and I felt it was only right for me to keep them both on board.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tom. I thought you had a really good driver lineup across the course of Season 1, and not at all surprised to see you keep on those 2 drivers. And Felipe Nasr in reserve as well, another very capable racer who will step in if he is so needed across the course of the season. Next up is my team, Super Aguri. And Robin Fraines, he took part in 5 races last season. He was a replacement at the Super Aguri team for Nick Heidfeld, and he got a podium very early on in his stint, so that was enough to convince me to take him on. And Antonio Felix da Costa, the reigning Formula E champion, of course I was going to take him on, being a Formula E nuts myself. He did 3 races for MasterCard Lola last time out, replacing Susie Wolff. Didn't really get the results due to reliability issues of the Lola, but he did enough to convince me to give him a full race seat for this season. And Oliver Rowland, keeping the Formula E theme there, he will be my reserve driver. Moving on to Simtech, led up by Scott Woodwist, taking on Scott Dixon for a second term. Competed in 9 races across the course of season 1 and took pole position in one of them and 2 podiums as well. So maybe Scott Dixon can take the next step this season and get a maiden victory for the Simtech team. And Tom, this is an interesting signing here. He's joined by Jamie Whincup, who in real life has recently announced his retirement from racing. But here in a Grand Prix World Series, he's about to make his Formula One debut.
Yep, and another newcomer on the grid, and I'm hoping that Whincup can bring his V8 supercars taste into the Grand Prix World Series, and hopefully he can do as good of a job as what Scott Dixon had done last year. So fingers crossed for him.
Well, Jamie Whincup, he's qualified down in 19th place for today, which isn't really what you would expect. But when you consider that his teammate Dixon is in 16th and the whole field is separated by just over a second, it's not down to a lack of ability for Jamie Whincup. It's just that the field is that close, so maybe he can make up a few positions across the course of the race. Moving on to AGS, once again headed up by Phil Kinch, who left the AGS squad following the conclusion of Season 1, but in the off-season decided, actually, I'm missing it too much, I'm going to come back. So he retook control of the AGS team, and he has hired the services of Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon, 2 recent Formula 1 dropouts, Magnussen losing his seats with Haas, and Alex Albon being demoted to the reserve driver in the Red Bull family. And Tom, given that these are 2 very recent and also very fast Formula 1 drivers, this could be a team to watch out for.
They could, and with Andre Lotterer already picking up a win for the AGS team last year, can they add to that and all of a sudden become championship contenders? I'm pretty sure that Phil Kinch can smell more success this season, but I think the talking will be very much on the racetrack for Magnussen and Albon. And looking at where they've qualified, those 2, Magnussen on pole and Albon in 9th place. So they've got a good chance to do well in this one, providing there's no reliability issues.
So a good start to the season for the AGS squad with Kevin Magnussen putting his car onto pole position. But as we saw from the Tier 2 race, having pole position does not guarantee you the victory. We've still got 67 laps to go before we find out who will take victory in a Tier 1 race. Moving on to our next team, which is Minardi. They took a victory last season at Taupo with their now reserve driver Marc Genet. Teapot's taken a decision to demote the Spaniard to reserve driver, giving Mr. Le Mans himself, Tom Christensen, a chance at Formula 1 alongside the Dutch driver of Jos Verstappen. I mean, they're listed as rookies there on the graphic, Tom, but both highly experienced and highly capable.
It's definitely capable, particularly Jos Verstappen, who's already twice a podium finisher back in '94 with Benetton at Hungary and Belgium. Tom Christensen, 9-time Le Mans winner. Can he bring that success onto the single-seater stage? And I mean, I would love to have seen him in Formula 1. I mean, he did have a test with the Minardi team at the beginning of '98, didn't he? Before his seat was taken by the likes of Shinji Nakano and Esteban Tuero. But now he's been given his opportunity with the Minardi team in the Grand Prix World Series. Can he spring a light to the grid? And given where he's going to be starting in 20th place, not perhaps where he wanted, but it's a very tight grid on a very short circuit. Anything can happen.
Hindsight is such a wonderful thing, Tom. If you would have taken a choice out of Tom Christensen and Shinji Nakano, I mean, well, as I said, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Moving on to our next team is the Onyx Grand Prix outfit led by Ryan Ferris for a second season, keeping on Takuma Sato from his 2 pole positions out of 5 races last season. Can he go the distance and finally take a maiden Grand Prix victory this season? He lines up 3rd on the grid today. He's got a good chance of doing it. And Ryan opting for an all-Japanese lineup as he brings in Kazuki Nakajima into 2nd race driver seat, while Sebastian Bourdais, the Season 1 race driver, is demoted down to reserve driver. Bourdais there ready and waiting to step in again should he be needed. And heading up our next team is Alan Schall of the MasterCard Loader team, opting for an all-female driver lineup. Simona Di Silvestro, a star of IndyCar, she took a podium at Houston in 2013. She heads up this outfit that attempted to enter Formula 1 in 1997, failed to qualify for the Australian Grand Prix and was never seen again. Tatiana Calderon used to race in Formula 2. She now races in Super Formula. She's in the second seat, while Catherine Legg is in the reserve driver role. And Tom, Silvestro has done a mighty job in qualifying, starting in 5th. How do you see this team doing?
I think they could be one of the surprises of the season for me, Topher. I mean, De Silvestro doing a tremendous job up there in 5th place, less than 600ths off pole position as well. So could she be one of the surprises in the race? It'd be interesting to see how race strategy pays out. She's behind the former Lola driver, Antonia Felix da Costa, who we are expecting to perform very, very well this season. Tatiana Calderon on the back row in 25th, not where she wants to be, but, qualifying's one thing, the race is another.
And so here's the difference between the field spread of the drivers. Simona Di Silvestro in 5th place, within a 10th of a second of poleman, whereas Tatiana Calderon, she's less than a second off of Di Silvestro, but she's all the way down in 25th, just alluding to how competitive this field is. 3 more teams to go before we get racing. BMS Scuderia Italia this season headed up by Emma Featherstone, taking up the reins from Adam Weller, who took this team last season. And Andre Lotterer, a race winner at the Marrakesh Grand Prix last season, he heads up the BMS team with rookie teammate Pietro Fittipaldi stepping into the second seat. And Guan Yu Zhao, Formula 2 star, is in a reserve role. Andre Lotterer could be one of the dark horses of the season. He's got the experience, he's got the race-winning know-how. We'll just have to wait to see whether he can convert that into results out on track. Our penultimate team this time around, Midland Racing, headed up by Michael Gillespie, taking over from Ben Johnston, bringing on Paul Di Resta, who took part in all 15 races of Season 1, with point-scoring finishes, but not too much in the way of success. Didn't get on a podium, but a very capable race driver. Could he maybe break his way into the top 3 this season? And he is partnered by Italian Nicola Larini in the number 25, while fellow Italian Gianni Morbidelli takes on the reserve driver role at the Midland Racing team. And our final squad before we get racing, the 40 Corsi team, Dave Goddard, went into Season 1 with the aim of, I'm just here for a bit of fun, I'm not taking it too seriously, and with a bit of an aim of being the slowest team. And Tom, he achieved that in Season 1, he was the slowest team of the lot, but this time round, he means business, and he's brought on new recruits of Mika Salo and NASCAR legend Jeff Gordon, who is eligible by virtue of having done a proper test for the Williams Formula 1 team. Maybe, just maybe, Tom, a dark horse for some serious results this season.
Yep, and 40 could be one of those to pick up the pieces. And, they were used to being on the back row, and now they're 22nd and 23rd, so it's a bit of progress, actually, so far for Dave Goddard's men. But can they achieve points on a more regular basis and also avoid relegation? Because, that's going to be his target for the season, I think.
I think him going from last to first might be a bit of a tall order, but if he can avoid relegation into Tier 2 for Season 3, I think he can consider that to be something of a success. And that is your fields for the Tier 1 race. All 13 teams are now raring to go. So next up, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Vancouver Tier 1 race, with Kevin Magnussen on pole position ahead of Prost's Pedro de la Rosa, only a few hundredths away from pole position himself. Takuma Sato, one of the qualifying stars of Season 1, in 3rd. Super Guris da Costa is in 4th. Di Silvestro in a Lola, 5th ahead of Sebastian Buemi in the BAR. Brendan Hartley, the Season 1 vice-champion, in 7th ahead of Midland's Paul Di Resta, going together on row 4. Row 5 is made up of Alexander Albon and Andre Lotterer, the one-time race winner, on row 5. Kamui Kobayashi in the Arrows in 6th ahead of Fraines, Alguersuari and Fittipaldi together on row 7, and our reigning champion all the way down in 15th, row 8 ahead of Scott Dixon, not where he wanted to be. Nico Hulkenberg is 17th ahead of Jos Verstappen. Jamie Winkup's debut sees him line up in 19th ahead of Mr. Le Mans Tom Christensen. Kazuki Nakajima in his debut will be 21st alongside Mika Salo. Jeff Gordon and Tom Cruise make up row 12 in their respective debuts. And the back row of the grid is Tatiana Calderon and Nicola Larini. Down to the grid, Tom.
Yep, and looking at Kevin Magnussen on his debut in the Grand Prix World Series, Pedro de la Rosa, very much familiar at this end of the grid from his heroics last year. Can he go for the victory from the get-go? And the lights are about to go out, and we're about to go underway here in Vancouver in Tier 1, and there we go.
It's lights out and away we go at Vancouver. De La Rosa gets a better start than Magnus off line, but look at Antonio Felix da Costa. Da Costa going straight into the lead. We're on board with Vern as he's tripping up over, I think that's Alguersuari ahead of him. That's not what the champion wanted in his first race as reigning champion. Is he out? Oh, we've got a few cars dropping out. There's been a bit of a pile-up there. Jean-Eric Verne dropping out of the first corner. There's an Arrows behind him as well, which is Hulkenberg. Jamie Whincup out of his first race in the Syntec, and Tatiana Calderon. A bit of a pile-up there into turn 1. Didn't quite see all of what happened there as we were riding on board with Jean-Eric Verne. But meanwhile at the front, Antonio Felix da Costa shoots from 4th into the lead. What a start there for the Portuguese, but not really the starts that Verne, Hulkenberg, Whincup and Calderon would have wanted, Tom.
No, definitely not. We would have wanted to have seen replays of that, but couldn't quite see it because it looks like a great... I think... To be honest, I think given it's the first corner and how the field bunched up, it looked very, very marginal, and it looks very much like a racing incident, if I'm honest with you. But Da Costa making an excellent start from 4th on the grid to lead at the end of lap 1 with Kevin Magnussen in 2nd. Then it's Takuma Sato in the Onyx in 3rd, followed by De La Rosa's Prost and Simona Di Sestro in 5th.
And Da Costa already building up a lead of 1.2 seconds over Magnussen. That was an electrifying start from Da Costa. I wonder if maybe he jumped the start there. We might have to have a look back at that. But he got such a jump on everyone else off the line and then into the first corner. He absolutely sent it on everyone else while chaos was ensuing behind him. And I think I just got a shot of Sato. Yes, Sato has passed Magnussen for 2nd place. So Magnussen, having done a fantastic job in qualifying to put his AGS on pole position, now down to 3rd, and he is not where he wants to be.
No, and Magnussen not getting the best of starts, and De La Rosa not getting the best of starts either. So both of the front two on the grid have dropped down 2 positions each. Da Costa moving up 3 places, Sato moving up a couple as well, and Simona Di Silvestro maintaining her 5th place from her starting position. And one man who's made a brilliant start is Brendan Hartley in the Manor, who started in 7th and is up to 6th place actually. So he's only made up 1 position, but nevertheless he's still keeping his car intact. And Sebastian Buemi behind him in 7th, followed by Albon, Freins and Di Resta in 10th place in the Midland.
So Hartley and Buemi swapping positions. Buemi starting in 6th place and dropping down to 7th, while Hartley has gone the other way from 7th into 6th. And getting a raft of comments coming through in the live chat already. Scott Woodwis not at all happy with that start. His driver Jamie Whincup getting caught up in that incident. Unfortunate that we didn't get any replays or any footage of that accident. I would have loved to have seen what happened to cause 4 cars to retire. But that is the way it goes sometimes in the Grand Prix World Series. They all try and fight for position into the first corner. Sometimes they will trip up over each other. We saw that in the first race of the day in the Tier 2 race, Robert Wickens and Alex Zanardi tripping up over each other, which led to Zanardi's retirement. And yeah, sometimes we're going to get drivers tripping up over each other, and it's just unfortunate this time it's happened to the reigning champion, someone who's looking for their maiden Grand Prix victory, and 2 of the debutants, not really the starts of the season they would have wanted, and someone who has made a good start. Someone who's made a bad start there, Andre Lotterer, started 10th on the grid. He's now down into 14th. That's not the direction that he wanted to go, but he's got to get his head together now. He's 1.8 seconds behind Kamui Kobayashi in the Arrows. He's got to get his head down and make his way up through the field again. Now looking at Alex Albon, who is behind Sebastian Buemi and Brendan Hartley. We've got a gaggle of cars here all fighting for position. And yeah, Tom, a little bit of a chaotic start to the race. It's settling down a bit now up the front as we look at Pedro de la Rosa in 3rd place. In the midfield, it's all kicking off a bit.
Yeah, De La Rosa a lap ago got by Magnussen, and Di Silvestro, continuing her great start, he's also got by the pole sitter. So Magnussen dropping down the order like a stone so far, just like what Nick Heidfeld was in the Tier 2 race, where he was dropping down a position lap by lap, wasn't he? So Kevin Magnussen not having a good start to this race. Next behind him is Brendan Hartley, who I'd imagine will be on the tail of the AGS. Now, once you hopefully get a see of a camera view of that battle there, and see now they're just in the background, it's just dropped away there. But yeah, not a good start there for the Dane of Kevin Magnussen, who's now under pressure as the race goes on. And this is Alex Albon, who is tossing amongst the Sebastian Buemi's BAR. Sebastian Buemi back in the BAR after missing the second half of the season.
And Sebastian Buemi looking to reward the kindness of Tom Butterworth of bringing him back into the team. Some felt that Buemi was a little bit unfairly dropped. He was making some driving errors across the opening half of the season, but he was fast. So some people are thinking maybe he just needed a bit more time to get himself acquainted with the car. He was dropped in favour of Pascal Wehrlein after Wehrlein set the pace in the young driver test at Brno. But having put Buemi now back into the car, he is starting to show why Tom Butterworth has re-shown the faith in him. He's running in 7th place, under pressure from Alex Albon behind him, but also trying to attack Brendan Hartley in a manner in 6th place.
And here's Kevin Magnussen's about to lose another position to Brendan Hartley, last year's winner, of course. Di Silvestro looking up at there as the Portuguese. Is it Portuguese? Di Silvestro? Is she Brazilian? I can't quite remember.
Di Silvestro is Swiss.
Oh, she's Swiss. My apologies.
The Swiss Miss, as she's known to some people in the IndyCar world.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I do apologise if I got her nationality wrong. It does look somewhat Brazilian or Portuguese, doesn't she? I don't know. I'm probably getting mixed up between her and Costa a little bit. But either way, she's in 4th place, and Hartley did get by Kevin Magnussen on that lap in the manner. Can Hartley continue the run and go for a 2nd consecutive Vancouver Grand Prix victory, as he did to keep the title race alive last year, did Hartley? He had a fantastic end to the season. Can he continue that momentum into this one, considering that his title rival last year, Jean-Eric Vergne, is out of the race? Not a great start to his title defence for the Frenchman.
Now, you likened Kevin Magnussen's plight earlier on to Nick Heidfeld in the Tier 2 race as Magnussen loses another position, this time to Sebastian Buemi. In the Tier 2 race, Heidfeld attempted the one-stop strategy, which put him on a 3-stop strategy, which ultimately didn't pay off for him as he didn't really have the race pace. Magnussen's not really having the race pace here either, so I'm wondering if he's maybe suffering from a similar sort of fate to what Heidfeld did. And Phil Kinch putting in the live chat that the AGS boys are playing it safe in the early laps. I mean, it's all very well saying that Magnussen's playing it safe, but going from pole position down to 7th, I don't really buy into that, just playing it safe. As we look at Paul Di Resta launching it up the inside of Robin Frains in the Super Aguri for 9th place. Di Resta having a fantastic race so far. He was 8th on the grid. He did lose out a few positions at the start, but he's now working his way back up again as Kobayashi also gets past Frains. Frains is dropping down a few positions here. And
he's got a problem.
It looks like he might have a problem. Yes, Tom. Frains dropping down like a stone as he got a mechanical issue, as Dixon and Lotterer also get past. We're riding on board with De La Rosa at the moment, but it looks like Robin Frains is going to go into retirement here. Not a good start for one half of the Super Aguri garage. Tom Christensen now makes the move on the Dutchman as well, as Super Aguri looks like they're having one car who's about to drop out, while the other one is leading the race by 1.9 seconds.
And Da Costa crossing the line to start lap number 9. Just under 2 seconds clear of Takuma Sato in 2nd place. Sato, who's yet to finish a race in the Grand Prix World Series. He made his debut at Sentul in Malaysia last year. He qualified on pole the first time out. And here's Robin Frains, who had an electrical problem on that lap, so he's coming for his unscheduled stop. I can't imagine that they'll refuel it, and it'll be a long stop if they do choose to refuel the Super Aguri.
So 17 laps going on to Super Aguri, not the start of the season that Robin Frains would have wanted. And meanwhile at the front, his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa continues to lead with a gap of around about 2 seconds to Takuma Sato. And as you mentioned, Sato yet to finish a race in his time in the Grand Prix World Series, currently running in 2nd place. How great would it be if he could cap off his first finish here with at least a podium? Maybe even challenging for the victory. We'll have to wait and see how the rest of this race plays out with fuel strategies. There is Pedro De La Rosa running in 3rd place in the Prost. Both of these commentators having a car each on the podium. Seeing Sam Hall calling fix in the live chat. And let me assure you, Sam, and anyone else who's thinking the same thing, there is no such thing as a fix in this. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's up to you, but I've tried to keep this as fair as possible for everyone. Everyone's put in all of their car upgrades. You can upgrade the power or the reliability of your choosing. At the end of every race, you get prize money dependent on where your cars finish. So you can get a lot more prize money for finishing in first than you would do in 10th. As we look at Paul di Resta making another move on Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen now down to 9th in the AGS. He's really having a terrible time of this. He was on pole by only 12 thousandths of a second over Pedro de la Rosa. So Magnussen clearly has the 1 lap pace, but Tom not having the race pace at the moment.
No, clearly not. And Magnussen's going backwards. So I'll be interested to see what his fuel load's like. It could well be on the 1 stop. But so far, in the first 10 laps of this, it's not been very, very good for the former Haas driver. And now next behind Magnussen, I believe it's Kamui Kobayashi, who we believe is going to be fighting for wins this season, as he did so in Season 1. And yeah, I think he's not looking good though for the AGS team. Phil Kinch will not be too impressed with Magnussen dropping down the order as he is doing. And Albon, who's already ahead of Magnussen, so I don't know what it is with Magnussen so far. But Brendan Hartley's gotten by Simona Di Silvestro as well, Topher, whilst that is going on. So Hartley continuing to make his way through the field. Here's Jaime Alguersuari in the Prost, about to make a move on what looks like Scott Dixon in the Simtex. So that's Alguersuari up another position into 12th place, behind Andre Lottera's BMS Scuderia Italia.
So it looks like Prost is having good race pace at the moment. Pedro de la Rosa up there in 3rd place. Alguersuari making light work of Scott Dixon to take 12th place on that lap. And Andre Lottera up into 11th place. He did drop down to 15th at the start of this race, but he's been doing a fair job to make his way back through again. And he's only about a second and a half behind Kamui Kobayashi. So if Andre Lottera can close down that gap to the arrows ahead of him, he could be contesting for points again. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when the pit stops do come around, because as you said, Tom, we believe that Kevin Magnussen is running heavy, which would explain his apparent lack of race pace. But how is that going to stack up to the rest of the field? We could have the likes of Da Costa and Sato running lighter fuel loads. And we saw in Tier 2, Tom, it turned out to be a fantastic strategic race with a different pit battles that were going on. It looks like we might get more of the same this time round.
Yeah, and Da Costa, I mean, to see what fuel load he'll be on. And this is Verstappen losing position there to the 40 of what looks like Mika Salo. And behind Verstappen there is the other 40 of Jeff Gordon making his debut in the Grand Prix World Series. Now I've just realised that the 40s switched from the green and white livery to the yellow, the original yellow that they had when they first joined Formula 1 in 1995, as you remember.
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's actually quite nice to see that, Mika Salo having a bit of a lock-up there ahead of the Minardi of Tom Christensen. It's actually quite nice to see this season that 40 Corsi is the one making the overtakes, and as I say that, Mika Salo does get overtaken by Tom Christensen, the Dane getting 15th place back. But it's nice to see that 40 Corsi are actually making a bit more of a battle of it this season, trying to fight their way through the field.
And here's Rider on board with Takuma Sato in 2nd place, looking very, very comfortable there in the Onyx. See Da Costa in the picture now. This is Tom Cruise, who's one off appearance. He's down the inside there of what looks like the Midland of Nicola Larini, and that's a position gain there for the American.
So this is absolutely fantastic to see, Tom. When Sam Hall first stated his intentions to bring on Tom Cruise into the Grand Prix World Series, we all thought he was being a little bit silly. Like, Tom Cruise? Really? Like, we know that he knows how to drive a car, but really? And as it turns out, he is eligible via the fact that Red Bull did offer him a proper test. A lot of people think that Tom Cruise's only outing in a Formula 1 car was when he drove around circuits of the Americas while it was being built. Red Bull offered him a promo drive there to drive the circuit while it was being built to show off the new American circuit. But as it turns out, Red Bull did actually offer the Hollywood actor a proper test in a Red Bull at Willow Springs in America. And by the rules of the Grand Prix World Series, because it was an official test that he was offered, he's eligible. Sam Hall put that point across to us, we did the research into it and we agreed that he was indeed eligible. So Tom Cruise being brought into the Grand Prix World Series for what turns out to be just a one-off, as he looks to get footage for a new up-and-coming film, which we massively look forward to seeing. But from round 2 onwards, he will be bringing on board Marco Andretti, a race winner in IndyCar, who back in 2006 tested for the Honda Formula 1 team. And given that Marco Andretti has a bit more experience of single-seaters and racing in general, I think if Sam Hall is serious about getting the Constructors' Championship of BAR this season, I think that is a move that he probably has to make, Tom.
Yeah, and it's a long season ahead, and I'm sure after missing out on both the championships last year, he will want to bounce back from it and win this time round, to Sam. So, and with Brendan Hartley in 4th place, who did a tremendous job for him last year, can he and his future teammate Marco Andretti push the team forward to championship success? And here's De La Rosa, who's beginning to come under pressure now from Brendan Hartley. These two were battling for the lead, if you remember, for the Vancouver Grand Prix victory. Now remember when De La Rosa was on a 3-stop strategy, he made it work to finish 2nd, and Hartley was just pulling away in the lead in the manner. So
arguably, Brendan Hartley was the man of the season in the second half of the campaign at least. He starts off the season a little bit on the back foot, but then puts in some stellar performances to get himself some race victories and finish the season as the vice champion. And here at the opening round of Vancouver, it looks like he's carrying on that form, as this is Sebastian Buemi making a move on his compatriot Simona Di Silvestro, the female racer of MasterCard Loader, dropping down a position to P6 as Buemi moves the other way into P5. Buemi, I think, has a point to prove this season after being dropped by Tom Butterworth and a BAR team last season, as Takuma Sato comes into the pits for a scheduled pit stop.
So we get an opportunity to see if Sato is going to go on a 2-stop or is he going to convert it to a 3. Let's have a look.
So 19 laps of fuel going on board the Onyx there, so that is possibly a 3-stopper if I've done my calculations correctly. I think that might be a 3-stopper for Sato. So electing to go the way of lighter fuel lights for a faster car, but will he get track position? He's now back out onto the circuit in 12th place behind Scott Dixon and ahead of Tom Christensen. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. And here is Alex Albon in the AGS looking to make a move on Di Silvestro, and he makes it through. So Di Silvestro loses another position a lap after she lost out to Sebastian Buemi. As here is Antonio Felix da Costa in the lead of Vancouver Grand Prix. He must be coming into the pits soon, because with the lead that he built up, I would have expected him to be on a lighter fuel load. Here is Pedro De La Rosa in 2nd place. He carries on for another lap as well, 6.5 seconds behind Antonio Felix da Costa. And Sato, he's less than 2 seconds behind Dixon, so he has made the pit stop and got out, but now he has the traffic to deal with.
So Buemi in 3rd place at the moment, so he's still yet to pit. And Andre Lotto is in the pits now in the BMS Scuderia Italia. So he's 9th place on there, it could be a higher position. And in comes the Minardi, I think that was Jos Verstappen who just came into the pits. Along with, Albon and Verstappen are in the pits as well. I think, I'm just looking at the oil at the moment.
We've got an incident, I think that's between the 240 drivers. Jeff Gordon now facing sideways, and he's been hit by someone there by the looks of it. Jeff Gordon out of this race. I think that was in a collision with his teammate Mika Salo. They were together on the circuit. Andre Lotterer is also out of this race. We haven't seen a replay of it, but yeah, there is Andre Lotterer being carried off the circuit, and Lotterer had just come into the pit. So Tom, is this maybe a replay of what we saw in the Tier 2 race? Oh, Da Costa's out as well. The race leader has dropped out, as has Nicola Larini. So we're now riding on board with Larini in the replay. Oh, he's taken out Da Costa. As he's come out to pits, Da Costa had a commanding lead at the front. And wrong place, wrong time for the Portuguese. Larini coming out of pits and has taken out Super Guri. And now we get another onboard shot. And yeah, he's trying to go around the outside of the Midlands as Larini has exited the pits. And, I mean, we saw it in the Tier 2 race, Tom, and we've seen it again in Tier 1. That pit exit has caused some problems here today.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say we're not going to be going back to Vancouver next season. Well, we could do, but most certainly not on that configuration because the pit exit is proving to be a danger zone, and that hands the lead to Pedro De La Rosa in the Prost. You know, De La Rosa has already won a Grand Prix in the Grand Prix World Series last year in Sentinel. Can he pick up his second victory this time around? And what a shame for the Super Aguri team, Topher, because Costa had the race in his pocket by the looks of it, and then Nicola coming out of the pits at the wrong place at the wrong time and colliding with the Portuguese.
I mean, I know as a commentator I'm supposed to remain impartial, but if, in case you don't know watching this, Super Aguri is actually my team. I am the team manager of the Super Aguri team. And seeing Robin Frames having his problem earlier on, his electrical problem that forced him into the pit lane, and then Da Costa being a passenger in that collision with Nicola Larini, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I was happy about that, but for now at least I'm going to put that behind me and continue on with the rest of this race. De La Rosa has the lead of the Vancouver Grand Prix, but that incident for Da Costa actually put Sato into the net lead of this race. There's a little bit of a slide there from Frames, but he's done well to hold on to that. We saw a spin in that section of the track earlier today for Danny Kvyat, who span out of the lead while doing that, and Frames has held on to it that time. But Takuma Sato is in the net lead of this race, having already pitted. He's 18.5 seconds behind De La Rosa, so when everyone else in front of him pits, Sato is going to be in the lead in Vancouver.
It looks that way, doesn't it? And Sato, who's now in 7th place on the road, will most definitely be in the lead once De La Rosa, Buemi and co come in for their stops. I'm interested to see what fuel strategy that De La Rosa is on though, because he came in very early, did Sato, didn't he? And I'd be interested to see how much longer De La Rosa is going to go on his first stint.
So this is where we're going to get the fantastic strategic battle that we saw in Tier 2. Sato, the net race leader, as we said, but doing more pit stops than De La Rosa ahead of him. And which one is going to be the better strategy? It's unclear at this point. We're about a third of the way through this Canadian race. De La Rosa has a lead of 4.9 seconds over Bohemian. Di Silvestro is up into 3rd place. Magnussen, having dropped down to 9th earlier on, is now up into 5th place, albeit with Sato having pitted and Da Costa dropping out. And we've got a battle here. That is Sato overtaking Kobayashi. So my mind went blank for a moment there. I was trying to figure out who it was in the Onyx. Here is the other Onyx of Kazuki Nakajima being overtaken by Alex Albon, but further up the road, Sato on his fresher tyres has put a move on his countryman Kamui Kobayashi in the Arrows. Kobayashi, the sole running Arrows after Hulkenberg was taken out in the lap 1 melee. And De La Rosa still about 4.9 seconds ahead of Sebastian Buemi. That gap is being pretty constant at the moment. You would have thought that De La Rosa and Buemi would be coming in at a similar time to each other.
So De La Rosa keeping the good hold of his temporary lead at the moment over Sebastian Buemi in 2nd. Di Silvestro very much having a fantastic race in the MasterCard Lola, and Paul Di Resta in 4th place in his first outing for the Midland team. And Midland struggled last year when Ben Johnson was there, and Paul Di Resta had been taken on by Michael Gillespie, who's taken over as team manager within that team, and Di Resta's doing a fine job. Topher.
He's doing a very good job up in 4th place. And speaking of the MasterCard Loader team, we have Di Silvestro up there in 3rd place as she pulls into the pits. I mean, Lola, they had an okay season this season. They scored points here and there, but they were never going to challenge the upper reaches of the field. And they've come back in Season 2 looking a lot stronger this time round. And it looks like Di Silvestro will be going on to a 2-stop strategy as she puts 25 laps of fuel into the car. In at the same time is Di Resta and Kobayashi, and Christensen now comes into the pits as well. So now we're starting to see some of the 2-stoppers beginning their pit strategies, and we're now waiting to see how this is going to shake up the order. And we've got another incident coming out of the pit lane. Now it's Di Silvestro, and I think Kazuki Nakajima, Nakajima is out of the race, having gone into the wall as a result of that. And Tom, what you said earlier is completely right. I think given the pit issues that we're having now, I don't think we will be coming back to Vancouver for Season 3.
No, it's. I mean, to be honest, I was trying to make the point about that on season 1, and I think not enough people took notice of what I've said. But this is what I mean. You know, the pit exit's too dangerous. Drivers are going out into the path of others, and it's causing absolute mayhem. And it's destroying the racing. So I think we probably need to put a veto on Vancouver in regards to coming back racing here again for season 3.
I think we can definitely look into the option of the other Vancouver layout, but we'll have to obviously do our tests on that. Meanwhile, at the front, Magnussen is now back into the lead of this Grand Prix, as Sebastian Buemi has gone into the pits. Dixon and Sarlo now also in the pits as well. Sato is back up into second place. Magnussen hasn't yet pitted, so he's in the lead at the moment, but not the net lead. And, there's Kobayashi going into the wall there, and he's probably going to retire as a result of this race. And is that from contact from someone else? We haven't quite seen it on the replay. And Scott Dixon is also out as well, so maybe Dixon and Kobayashi have come together. And, yeah, this is becoming a bit farcical now, and I can only apologise to all of the team managers and the drivers who are suffering as a result of this. But that pit exit is causing some real drama here, and we've got drivers who are dropping out who really should still be in this race.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally unfair on those who've had to suffer because of it, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say really. I mean, I know De La Rose is running at high in third, and Alguersuari and, you know, my boys have not been affected, but we can't be having races like this with drivers, you know, taking each other out as they're coming out of the pits. It's not fair, it's not racing, and it's, you know, we can't be coming back here again in future seasons.
And I think that we're only on lap 25, but I think maybe we've already seen more pit lane incidents in this race than we did in a Tier 2 race. We had, I think, 2 or 3 earlier on today, and there's Di Silvestro making a move down the inside of Pietro Fittipaldi in the BMS. Here is Robin Fraser in 15th, down at the back of the field after his earlier electrical issue. So he's looking to make his way back up through the field. But the next car in front of him is Tom Cruise, who is here for a one-off appearance with the Manor team. And looks like he's not going to be the top gun of the Manor team today. But he's doing a good job. He's 52 seconds off of the lead, 25 laps in, up there in 14th place. Maybe if we get a few more retirements, maybe Tom Cruise could get some points in his one-off appearance.
And whilst you say that, Pedro De La Rosa has set a new fastest up of the race, a 1 minute 5.0. He's closing in on second place Takuma Sato. The gap, from what I can see, is just around about 5 seconds between the two. So De La Rosa eating into Sato's gap in second, and this is Sebastian Buemi, who's right behind what looks like the manor of Brendan Hartley.
So this is a fight between the two leading teams from Season 1. BAR taking home the team's championship while Jean-Eric Vergne took the driver's championship. And Manor was second in that particular season, Brendan Hartley finishing as the vice champion. But this time, instead of fighting Jean-Eric Vergne, he's now fighting Sebastian Buemi, making his return to the Grand Prix World Series. And looking more towards the front, Tom, Magnussen's back out in the lead. He hasn't pitted yet, so I think we were correct in our analysis earlier that Magnussen, given his lack of race pace earlier on, must be on a one-stopper.
I could agree with you on that, and now we're on lap 27. I'd be interested to see how much fuel Magnussen's got left in there. He can't have that much fuel left before he has to come in for his, what looks like his only stop of the race. So this is very much Sato's race to lose, Topher, or is it?
Well, we saw in the Tier 2 race earlier, Callum Eilert attempted the one-stopper as Buemi's looking to make a move up the inside of Brendan Hartley for 4th place, and the Swiss gets the move done. Buemi up into 4th place on Brendan Hartley. Buemi getting a little bit out of shape on the exit of the corner, maybe getting onto the marbles that have been laid down across the course of the day. But going back to what I was saying about the Tier 2 race, Callum Eilert went on to a one-stop strategy, and he went on to finish second in that race. He had a very strong race, and he pitted, if I remember correctly, on lap 35 or 36, so around about exactly the halfway mark of this race. And to me, it looks like Kevin Magnussen is employing a very similar strategy.
And so far it seems to be paying off for Magnussen, who you can see in your picture, leading on the road. Doesn't have any back markers in front of him by the looks of it, so he's considering the chaos we've got less cars in the race and less cars for these leaders to be negotiating.
And I don't think Kevin Magnussen will be complaining about that one bit. He's got some nice clear air to play with now. He can get himself into a rhythm and try and extend that lead that he has as much as possible over Takuma Sato. The gap between those two currently sitting at 4.8 seconds and has just gone up to 4.9. Di Silvestro makes the move on the other AGS there of Alexander Albon. The Swiss Miss taking 6th place there. She's running a very strong race there in the MasterCard Lola. And Kevin Magnussen, he's actually pulling away from Takuma Sato at the moment, presumably on what is currently a lighter fuel load, because if Magnussen is going on till about, say, lap 35, that's currently about 6 or 7 laps of fuel in their car, whereas Sato, going for a 2-stop, we believe, will be taking him to around about maybe lap 40 to 45, which means that he's going to be having 15 to 20 laps of fuel on his. So Magnussen trying to make the most of his lighter car as he pursues a maiden Grand Prix victory on his debut here in the Grand Prix World Series. And Magnussen has pulled out another 2/10 on Takuma Sato, the gap now up to 5.1, Tom.
And yet, and while Sato's losing time, De La Rosa's closing in on the Japanese driver. So Sato beginning to lose some pace on his second set of tyres. And this is Pietro Fittipaldi in 9th place in the BMS Scuderia Italia. He could pick up some useful points here today. This is going to be one of the very few opportunities where we've got so many drivers dropping out, and a lot of the drivers from the back of the field could end up taking advantage and scoring some good points here today.
Well, as the saying goes, Tom, in order to finish first you must finish. And Kevin Magnussen has gone off. And has he got damage? We can't quite see on the camera, but Kevin Magnussen has bottled it out of lead, and he is out of the race. So much like Danny Kvyat earlier on in the Tier 2 race, completely unpressured, has dropped it out of lead. It looks like that was a driving error there for the AGS. Phil Kinch jinxing himself. He's literally just said in the live chat, it's nice to see an AGS out front for a change. Andrew Sampson then coming in with a nice lead you have there, Phil. And look what's happened. Magnussen, completely unpressured, has dropped himself out of the lead and out of the race. I mean, we saw it in Tier 2, Tom, and we've seen it again in Tier 1.
I thought it was a mechanical issue, if I'm honest with you. I think judging by the way he went into the barrier, he didn't go into the barrier very, very hard. I think he has some kind of, I think it may be a brake problem or a transmission problem. We'll find out at the end of the race what the problem actually was. But yeah, not good news for Phil Kinch. I mean, that's another race victory lost there for him. And now we've got to rest his hopes on Alex Albon to salvage something from this race for him. And here's Sato, who's now back in the lead. De La Rosa closing in on him still in 2nd place. This could be anyone's race now, couldn't it?
So we've now had 2 drivers who have gone out from the lead. We had Antonio Felix da Costa earlier on being taken out by Nicola Larini on the pit exit, and this time we've had Magnussen now hitting the wall. Possible driver error, possible mechanical issue, we'll find out after the race. And I imagine that Ryan Ferris, manager of the Onyx team, is now feeling maybe a little bit nervous with that lead that Takuma Sato's now got.
Yeah, and we'll also say that Alex Albon's got by Simona Di Silvestro and he's up into 5th place. And the next man up front from Albon is Brendan Hartley's Manor.
So maybe Alex Albon can salvage something for the AGS squad today. Albon running a strong 5th place. Of course, Phil Kinch would have loved to have had a victory here today with Kevin Magnussen, but that's not going to happen now. And Alex Albon running in 5th. He's about 7 seconds away from the back of Brendan Hartley, but showing strong race pace at the moment. And with over half of the race still to run, maybe Albon can snatch a podium here. We'll have to wait to see how the rest of that pans out. Meanwhile, Sato has now filtered back into the lead of the Vancouver Grand Prix. And the pit strategy playing a big part here. He did drop down through the order earlier, having pitted earlier than everyone else. But he now has track position. We've got Brendan Hartley looking to get back on Sebastian Buemi for 3rd place. These two are fighting earlier. And Brendan Hartley, the Season 1 Vice Champion, puts it down the inside of Sebastian Buemi into 3rd place.
It looks like a textbook manoeuvre there from Brendan Hartley on Sebastian Buemi. It looks rather maybe a bit too easy because he got the job done before the corner. So I don't know whether Buemi made a mistake on the corner before on the back straight. Either way, Brendan Hartley making his way up into the top 3. The next person up the road is De La Rosa's Prost.
And we have just started lap 33 of the Vancouver Grand Prix as Brendan Hartley pulls into the pits for what appears to be a scheduled pit stop. Fittipaldi getting all crossed up through the chicane there. As we start lap 33, we have 14 runners left in this race. Takuma Sato leads ahead of Pedro De La Rosa. Buemi is now up into third place again by virtue of Brendan Hartley pulling into the pit lane. Di Silvestro running a very strong race in fourth ahead of Paul Di Resta in the Midland. Pietro Fittipaldi in the BMS up into sixth place ahead of Jaime Alguersuari in the second cross, looking like a double points finish for Prost at the moment. Brendan Hartley has emerged from the pit lane in eighth place, and Brendan Hartley's in the wall. Brendan Hartley on eggs on the pit lane, and he's been hit up the back by, I think that is an AGS, it's Alex Albon. So Brendan Hartley got it all wrong coming out of the pit lane. I believe that was on his own. I didn't see any other cars around him. And Alex Albon has gone into the back of Hartley, and he has also retired from this race, just adding to the long list of DNFs we already have from this Vancouver Grand Prix. And we're only at about half distance, and we've got 12 runners left.
Yeah, and Sato's just come into the pits for his second stop of the race. I mean, this is ridiculous now. Topher, we can't have cars continuing to crash out like this. I mean, I don't know whether we're going to count this race as for the race results, because this is for me a complete farce with so many drivers dropping out through pit exits and stuff like this. I mean, what do you think?
I think that is something that we will need to discuss after the race, because it's not just down to us, it's also down to all the team managers that take part in the Grand Prix World Series. Everyone has an input into how this is run. So at the end of season 1, we took all of the circuits that were on the season 1 calendar, and we had a vote on which ones of those would stay. Vancouver was a heavily favoured one, actually, despite the fact that it did have that pit lane glitch. It was a very popular circuit just for the pure racing aspect, so we decided to keep it on. And I think if it was just down to me personally, Tom, I think that's what you were asking. If it was just down to me, I think I would have to agree with you that this just isn't really good enough, and Vancouver probably shouldn't have a place on the Grand Prix World Series calendar for Season 3. But I would like to have all of the input from all of the other team managers and see what they have to say. Maybe some of them will have a suggestion for a better circuit to use. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out at the end of the race. Getting back to the actual racing itself, 12 runners left. De La Rosa back into the lead of this race by virtue of Sato having made his second pit stop. Sebastian Buemi running in second ahead of Simona Di Silvestro. We have two Swiss drivers in the top three. Paul Di Resta in the Midland up into fourth ahead of our net race leader Takuma Sato. Tom Christensen in the Minardi having a very quiet race, but he's benefiting from the attrition to be in sixth place at the moment. Pietro Fittipaldi, and it's Jos Verstappen retiring from the race. That one looks mechanical to me, but that is yet another retirement in this race. I think that might have been an engine blowout for the Minardi.
So that's Verstappen out of the race. That's one of the Minardi's gone. So not good news for the team manager of the Minardi team. So down to 11 runners. Alguersuari occupying the 11th place, but he's just made a pit stop himself, so he could well be back into the points very, very soon. But yeah, it's, well, what can you say? And there's no back markers in front of De La Rosa at the moment, and this is Tom Cruise in 10th place. I think he's just got overtaken actually by Robin Freins, who is still in this race remarkably, after his electrical problems earlier. So, you can still get a points finish from this Topher after all.
So I'm hearing from the team managers, and I've just got this through from Sam Hall. There are discussions to move the Tier 1 race possibly to Montreal and declare the results of this race void while the Tier 2 results would stand. And like I said, we would have to discuss that after the race is finished. But I don't think I can argue too much against that, to be completely honest. We've still got 11 runners left on lap 37 out of 67, and with the way this is going, it could be the case that we could see a Monaco 96 level of attrition, where in that particular race there were only 3 cars that reached the finish line. There were 7 classified because of the 90% race completed rule, but only 3 actually crossed the finish line. That was Olivier Panis taking his one and only Grand Prix victory ahead of David Coulthard and Johnny Herbert on that day. And I do wonder if we're going to get a similar sort of attrition in this race. We're only just past the halfway mark, and we've got more than half of the runners left. One thing I do want to point out here, Tom, we still have Tom Cruise running in this race. He's gathering footage for his upcoming new film. And yeah, if he wanted footage, it's probably a good thing that he wasn't caught up in that lap 1 medley or any of the pit lane incidents.
Yeah, I mean, he's relishing the opportunity now that he's in 11th place. I mean, if he's on the podium by the end of the race, I don't know how that would go out in his new film. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, going back to what we were saying about, you know, how should we declare this one? I think if you're going to declare this the Tier 1 race null and void, I think it's only fair that you declare the Tier 2 race null and void as well, because we saw the incidents in the Tier 2 race, didn't we? And that was totally unfair on those that actually crashed down. It was a considerable number still that were caught up in the melee of it. So I think we should maybe, by the end of this one, if it was me, I would null and void all the races from Vancouver and move it to Montreal instead, as a precaution and as a replacement, because I just don't see how that would be fair, quite frankly. But that's something we can discuss afterwards with the other team managers.
The only caveat with moving the race to Montreal, one of our rules regarding circuit selection for the Grand Prix World Series is we can't have any current Formula 1 circuits, and while we didn't have a Canadian Grand Prix last season due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I would say that Montreal is still officially a part of the Formula 1 calendar. So maybe we could look into the possibility of either the other Vancouver layout, or maybe Toronto would be another option, the IndyCar circuit. And Sam Hall suggesting that maybe this won't be a non-championship round, which it would become if we were to null and void the results, because the races have still happened, so we could put them down as non-championship rounds. But I don't think that's a decision that we should be taking right now. I think we should wait until the end of the race where we can properly talk to all of the team managers and get everyone's viewpoint. Meanwhile, we're down to less than 30 laps left to run here at Vancouver. We have 11 left on the track. How many of that is going to be by the end of the race, I do not know. We will have to wait and see. But as it stands, Pedro De La Rosa leads 9.5 seconds ahead of Sebastian Buemi, and Di Silvestro is in third.
So at least there's still a few battles going on, Chad. There was a battle there between, I think it was between De Resta and Sato. Sato trying to make up ground from his earlier pit stop. De La Rosa going on a longer second stint than Sato was earlier, but Sato was the one who came in earlier than De La Rosa. So it'll be interesting to see how De La Rosa goes on his last stint of tyres once he comes in for his second stop. And this is Di Silvestro in third place on a debut as well. Fantastic race for Di Silvestro. And Sato's right behind De Resta. It should be an overtake from the Japanese driver. Here we go, look.
So Sato making a move down the inside of Paul De Resta into fourth place. Sato very much the benchmark at the moment. He's on a different strategy to everyone else, but he has the pace to make it work. And he's up into fourth place now. 1.6, now 2.1 behind Di Silvestro. Sato will have lost a bit of time there getting past Paul Di Resta, but now that he's cleared the Scotsman, he will be able to chase down Simone Di Silvestro. And when De La Rosa and Buemi make their pit stops, Sato will filter once again back into the lead of this race.
So looking at Buemi, who still keeping in touch there. You can see De La Rosa about to lap Tom Cruise in the manner, the sole surviving manner. Who would have thought he'd be going further in the race than Brendan Hartley? But to be fair, Brendan Hartley was unfairly taken out there in the that pit exit melee. But at least he's still running, and to be honest, he could well be in the points by the end of this race. I mean, I don't think that we'll see the last of the retirements from here on in. I think there's still another retirement or two left in this.
Well, with regards to the pit lane incident, of course there'll be some that would warrant an investigation from the stewards, and in the past we have seen penalties from the stewards for various indiscretions. So we've seen drivers taking out another driver and receiving a race ban. We've seen time penalties, and yeah, this race and the Tier 2 race as well would be giving the stewards a lot to think about. But if we do end up declaring this race null and void and make it a non-championship race, that would also nullify the need for any stewards' inquiries. Just the results of the race will stand whatever happened, because there'll be no bearing on the championship.
Could this be something we consult with Jake Sanson as well?
Well, with Jake Sanson being the head of the Retro Racing Managers League, the one who devised all this and put it together in the first place, I would like to have his input and what he thinks about it. But again, this is a discussion that we shall have at the end of the Grand Prix. We still have about 26 laps to go. And who is going to win the race and who's going to be on the podium? I mean, we're looking at Simona Di Silvestro, who's running a fantastic race in third place and looking very strong for a maiden Formula 1 podium at her first attempt, but she's got Takuma Sato bearing down on her, 2 seconds behind, and Sato is bringing Paul di Resta along with him. Tom Christensen is there in 6th place. We've hardly seen anything of him this race, but Mr. Le Mans is running in 6th place and on for a good haul of points should this race stand as a championship round. And we're now looking at Pedro de la Rosa about to put in a lap on Top Gun himself, Tom Cruise.
So De La Rosa continuing to pull away from Sebastian Bring, rolling with Tom Cruise, who gets out of the way of the Spaniard. De La Rosa on course for what could be his second Grand Prix World Series win, which may turn into a non-championship race win for him if we do decide to null and void this one and just class it as a non-championship one and then move the race to wherever to replace it, or just have a 15 race championship like we did last year. But that's something we'll have to decide within the RML following this particular event. Sebastian Buemi in 2nd place. He's done a reasonably good job in this one as Buemi. He's started 6th on the grid and now he's in 2nd place as we speak. Jean-Eric Verne, his teammate, already out of the race on lap 1 in that contact with Whincup, Calderon, and I think it was Hulkenberg, wasn't it? He was in it together.
Yeah, Hulkenberg was also involved in that, and if we do end up declaring this a null and void race, that would do a favour to the likes of Tom Butterworth, Emma Butterworth, and Scott Woodwith as well, who is a team manager for Jamie Whincup, because obviously they would have been losing points as a result of this race from their earlier incident. So if we do move this to a non-championship race, as is a very real possibility, I think they can breathe a sigh of relief on that one, because they weren't so much reliability issues for them, they were just accidents. So I don't think they can put that down to the car not being up to it. It's just one of those things. And De La Rosa, a little bit leery as he makes his way onto the pits, but he comes in for his final scheduled pit stop, and this will drop him behind the net leader Takuma Sato. But De La Rosa is going to be on the fresher tyres, and here's Di Silvestro in the MasterCard Lola. She carries on for another lap, as does Buemi, who now takes over the lead of this race. De La Rosa now going to the end, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I'm just looking through all of the drivers who are still left in this race from 1st down to 11th. I think your team of Prost is the only one with both cars left in this race.
You could well be right there, Topher. And just looking at Buemi, they've got a BAR, they've got a MasterCard Lola, Onyx, Midland, Prost, Minardi, BMS Scuderia Italia.
Solos in the 40.
Yeah, 40. Super Aguri, Prost, and Mana. Yeah, I think you're right, yeah. So Prost are the only team to have 2 cars still running in this race. So, it could be a double points finish for the Prost team, but it could be to no avail, because this race could well end up being a null and void one. But at least we've learned something today, Topher, and the RML about Vancouver.
Well, as is the case with any sort of racing, even if you're not in race conditions per se, you can still gather data. And look at Takuma Sato trying to get past Di Silvestro. Simona now pulls into the pits and gets out of the way. But Sato very nearly tripping up over the Swiss Miss, trying to get past. Sato now assumes the lead of the race ahead of De La Rosa, as Buemi, di Resta and Di Silvestro all pit. And De La Rosa is right there. So we now have a real fight for the lead on our hands, as Takuma Sato comes out just in front of De La Rosa, who's recently pitted and is on fresher tyres. And De La Rosa trying to line up the Japanese driver. He's already pulled up out of the slipstream, trying to get through into the lead, coming down to everyone's favourite overtaking spot. Pedro De La Rosa makes a move through into the lead and is now the net leader of this race and going to the end.
Yeah, it was a slam dunk manoeuvre from De La Rosa. I mean, Sato got held up badly by Di Silvestro as she was coming into the pits, and Sato just fell back into the clutches of De La Rosa, and the Prost driver took advantage. And now, can he go to the end without any reliability issues? I'm not saying that's a jinx, because we've still got some way to go yet in this Tier 1 race.
Well, speaking of the jinx, Tom, we all know what the jinx is like when it comes to the Retro Racing Managers League, and we've got some people in the live chat saying, nice lead you have there, Tom. And not that I want to echo their sentiments, but I think some people are trying to put the RML jinx on you.
Well, you know what I'm like. I mean, I had my fair share of bad luck last year, and yeah, I'm just hoping it doesn't strike me again in this one. And it seems though that the Pros boys seem to be getting the hang of this Vancouver circuit. I mean, they did well here last year, did Pros here at Vancouver, so they really are enjoying it again. As you can see, there's Sebastian Blaney after his final stop in 3rd position. Silvestro in 4th and Di Resta in 5th.
And 11 runners still going in this race. Tom Cruise, the only one not on the lead lap. He is here gathering footage for his new up-and-coming movie with the Manor team. He is going to be replaced at the next round by IndyCar driver Marco Andretti. And that is Sam Hall making a statement of intent towards the championship. He wants to get a #1 spot from BAR. Brendan Harley, already proven himself in the Grand Prix World Series, the Season 1 vice champion. And Marco Andretti, I feel is something a bit of an underachiever in IndyCar. He's definitely got the ability, but he hasn't really got the results to back that up. He took pole position for the last Indy 500 in 2020, but throughout the course of his IndyCar career, if I remember correctly, he's only got 1 or 2 victories, so hasn't really got the results to back up his ability, but he is a very capable driver.
Yeah, well, I mean, Marco Andretti is a name which I know I'm familiar with the name of Andretti, but with Marco Andretti I'm not too familiar about. But I would like to see, I think he's more established of a driver than Tom Cruise is, and it could well be the missing piece in the jigsaw puzzle for Sam Hull, and for the Manor team. Going back to where we're on what's happening on track, De La Rosa continuing to lead over Sato, pulling out a gap now that is more than 2 seconds between the two drivers, and it's Sebastian Buemi in 3rd, Simone Di Silvestro in 4th, and Paul Di Resta in 5th place for Midland. So Michael Gillespie on course for a good haul of points here if the race was to stand as it is, but at least it's a precursor for what's to come in the season.
Well, even if the championship points don't stand from this race, this is a good indication as to how each of the teams will stack up against each other. All of the team managers will be looking at this race thinking, have we got the speed, have we got the reliability, have we got the drivers even, and Sam Hall already making a change on that front, bringing out Tom Cruise and replacing him with Marco Andretti. So the likes of Onyx, led by Ryan Ferris, he'll be looking at Takuma Sato in 2nd and thinking this might actually be quite a good season. In Ryan Ferris and his team, they had a solid Season 1, I'd say, but didn't quite get the results to back that up. Takuma Sato, a handful of pole positions while he was in the car, but didn't finish any races. So Ryan Ferris looking more towards reliability for this season, as so far he's got better reliability and, it appears, also the speed to back that up.
Sato's in the pits now for his 3rd stop of the race. Has he had a problem, Sato? Because that's early for his last stop, unless it is scheduled.
I think he was on for a 3-stopper earlier on. He was trying to make that work earlier, and maybe pitting a couple of laps earlier just to try and get track position. We'll have to wait and see where he filters out. And we're looking at Robin Frames making a move on Mika Salo for 9th place. Frames having that electrical problem earlier on in this race, which dropped him down to the back of the field. And he's kept his nose clean for the rest of the race so far, and is up into P9. So if these results do stand, there will be at least 2 points for him should he stay there. Jaime Alguersuari in the 2nd. Frost has also come into the pits, so now we're starting to see the 3-stoppers making their way into the pits. Takuma Sato comes out in P5, about 5 seconds behind Paul Di Resta, but now on fresh tyres, and he's going to get off after a podium.
Just looking at De La Rosa, and Alguersuari is coming for his last stop. De La Rosa is coming up to lap him now. There's not going to be a...
Oh, we got a bit of a moment there between the two Prost drivers, and that was very close to another pit lane incident. So Alguersuari had just been into the pits for his final scheduled stop, come out into the path of his leading teammate Pedro De La Rosa, and I think very lucky for them not to trip up over each other, just like everyone else has been doing. As Tom, I don't think I need to tell you, that would have been an absolute disaster if those two came together.
Oh, massively so, and that would, my heart would have been pounding after that, and and into the lead that would have been for Sebastian Buemi as well, and Di Silvestro in second. In fact, Di Silvestro was back up into the podium places for Lola.
Di Silvestro running a very strong race at the moment, on for a podium in her first ever appearance in the Grand Prix World Series. Whether this will count towards a championship or not, that is another issue, but a lot of people in the live chat trying to bring down the RRML jinx upon you, Tom, and yeah, you got away with it that time. But looking forward onto the rest of the race, tripping up over my words there. Pedro De La Rosa continues to lead, 10 seconds over Sebastian Buemi. Takuma Sato is closing the gap down to Paul Di Resta in 4th place, and he'll want to get past him as quickly as possible to get up to the back of Simona Di Silvestro and take a podium out of this. And Buemi is closing in on Pedro De La Rosa. It's down to 8.6 seconds now, so maybe we've got another twist in the tail later on towards the end of this race, if Buemi can make up those 8.6 seconds in the remaining 15 laps.
And what I've noticed as well is that Alguersuari unlapped himself from De La Rosa, so De La Rosa kindly letting Alguersuari go so that he can get back onto the lead lap and chase after Mika Salo's 40.
I think that was a sensible thing to do for the Prost duo. Alguersuari had just come into the pit lane, and yeah, they nearly tripped up over each other. But with Alguersuari being on the fresher tyres and fighting for more points out of this, Pedro De La Rosa playing team game there and allowing Jaime Alguersuari to go through and unlap himself. Tom Cruise back to being the only lapped car in this race, and Alguersuari has closed the gap right down to Mika Salo, just in the last sector, closing in about a second and a half on the 40 Corsi. And here's a driver we've hardly seen anything of in this race, Tom. Tom Christensen running in 7th place. He's been very quiet, but just going about his business, and he looks like he's going to take home some points today.
It looks as though as well he's done a fine race at Christensen. He's kept his nose clean, out of trouble, and on course for a decent result from this Vancouver event. And could we see more of that in the races to come over the course of Season 2 in the Grand Prix World Series? You can see Sebastian Buemi, who has been eaten into De La Rosa's advantage, being held up now by Tom Cruise's manner, which won't do him any favours.
Well, the gap had stagnated between De La Rosa and Buemi, and this appears to be the reason why. Tom Cruise a lap down on De La Rosa, but not a lap down on Sebastian Buemi just yet. The gap stays at around 8.6 seconds between the top two, and Buemi will want to dispatch that manner as soon as possible. Here is Simona Di Silvestro, still running in 3rd place. She's got a gap of 2.2 seconds to Paul Di Resta behind her, and Paul Di Resta now has Takuma Sato for company. So we're now coming up to everyone's favourite sector of the track, and here's Buemi making the move on Tom Cruise to put a lap on the American, and behind them Sato will no doubt be lining up Paul Di Resta for a move down into everyone's favourite overtaking place. We're not seeing it on the cameras, but trying to catch it on the graphic. And there we go. Takuma Sato through into 4th place on Paul Di Resta, and is now 2.6 seconds behind Simona Di Silvestro on the fresher tyres.
And Alguersuari approaching Mika Salo's 40 now. You can just see in the foreground De La Rosa coming through turn 1, and I think Alguersuari should get Mika Salo on the back straight any moment.
And Alguersuari again on the fresher tyre, so he won't have much problem in dispatching the 40 Corsi of Mika Salo. And here we go, we're now looking at it, and indeed Alguersuari getting the move done even before the corner. He sweeps around the right-hander, gets it down the inside of the 40, and that's Salo down into 10th and Alguersuari up into 9th place. Now riding on board with Sebastian Buemi, who has dispatched Tom Cruise, but has lost more time to Pedro De La Rosa ahead of him. The gap is 9.1 seconds. De La Rosa's just gone through the next sector split, so we're going to now wait to see what Buemi's doing. Buemi's gone wide there. And oh, there's a collision there. Buemi does have a problem. Buemi, we were riding on board with him while he's trying to catch Pedro De La Rosa, and it looks like he's had some sort of mechanical issue, and Tom Cruise has tapped him on the way through, but I think before that collision happened, Buemi was already breaking down.
Yeah, I think something must have been wrong with I don't know if it was a gearbox issue for Buemi, but that could well explain why the pace had been lost on Buemi's BAR. So not a good start to the season for Tom Butterworth. both of his cars now out of the race, and not a good start for his title defence either.
Well, one thing that Tom Butterworth will be able to get out of this race is maybe a need to improve the reliability of the car. The team managers do have an influence on how these cars perform. They can upgrade their power and they can upgrade their reliability. At the end of each race, the team gets prize money dependent on how well their cars do. And that prize money that they get, they are able to put into the development of their cars. And Tom Butterworth of the BAR team, he does have a quick car under him, but as proven here, not necessarily a reliable one, so maybe that's an indicator for what Tom needs to do to make his cars better.
And up into the points, Tom Cruise.
Yes, Tom Cruise now on for a top 10 finish, and Tom Butterworth has just been in touch saying now he's protesting the results. And I think you don't need to worry too much, Tom Butterworth. I think this will end up being a null and void round. We will confirm everything following the conclusion of this Grand Prix. We have 10 laps to go here in Vancouver. And yeah, as it stands, Prost is still the only team with 2 cars running. Pedro De La Rosa leads. Di Silvestro is now up into 2nd place, albeit 21 seconds off the lead. And Takuma Sato, who's running an alternate strategy to everyone else, now up into the podium places and closing down on the Swiss Miss.
And Alguersuari's only a few seconds behind Robin Frijns as well, so he is going to be on the tail of the Super Aguri very, very shortly.
Oh, we've got Pedro De La Rosa trying to navigate his way around Mika Salo here. He needs to be careful not to get caught out in what would be yet another incident. And De La Rosa still can't find a way through. Salo is way off the racing line, but to me it looks like De La Rosa is just being that careful. I mean, we've seen all of the different incidents that have happened across the course of this race, and I wonder if that's De La Rosa just giving Salo as wide a berth as possible while he's got the gap to Di Silvestro behind him.
Yeah, so De La Rosa taking it very, very easy around the back markers. So Salo's the second driver to be lapped out of those that are left in the race. Going back to what we were saying about Alguersuari, he's 2.5 seconds behind Robin Frijns in the battle for 7th. And Paul di Resta is in the pits now. That's a very late pit stop there for...
Paul di Resta pulling into the pit lane. I think that is an unscheduled stop, so maybe a mechanical issue there for the Midland. We saw that earlier on from Robin Frijns in the Super Aguri. He had an electrical problem. And maybe the same fate has befallen di Resta, because that is absolutely unscheduled, only 9 laps away from the end of this race. That promotes Tom Christensen up into 5th place in a Minardi. And Tom, again, looking at the live chat, I think you can tell where the priorities of our team managers are. Sam Hall now saying that his Top Gun, Tom Cruise, is in the points. He's now happy to classify this as a championship race.
Well, who can blame him?
I mean, these team managers, they'll do anything to get points out of this. Like I've said before, we will discuss this after the race, but my feeling is that this will end up being a null and void race. And as pointed out earlier, if we null and void the results of the Tier 1 race, it's only fair that we do it for the Tier 2 race. One thing that I would like to point out with this, I mentioned about the budgets that people get out of this race. You get prize money dependent on what your cars do. I think given that we've had a chance to see how well these cars do, even if we nullify the points out of this race, I reckon we should still award prize money.
Yeah, I think we could agree on that.
Yeah, I think we'd have to discuss it, but I'm sort of thinking maybe award them the prize money that they get out of the results of this, but then maybe also a bonus to, compensate the teams who were taken out of race results, because of their not being their fault. So I'm struggling over my words there. So yeah, I think maybe they should get some bonus money to compensate the fact that their cars haven't finished. But again, we'll talk about that after the race. We've only got a handful of laps left to go. What has so far proven to be a bit more of a farcical Vancouver Grand Prix. We had this issue last season, but not really to the same extent. And I think it's safe to say we will not be coming back to this circuit again next season. But looking at the actual racing itself, De La Rosa has actually lost a bunch of time due to his misdemeanors behind Mika Salo. He had a gap of about 22 seconds, Tom. It's now down to 16.8.
No, he's just taking it very, very easy at the moment. We're getting to the end of the race now. And Di Silvestro is going to be under threat, actually, from Takuma Sato, who made that late pit stop. And keep an eye also on Paul di Resta's pace, because he's going to be on the tail of Tom Christensen soon, I would imagine.
The fresh tyres around this circuit have proven to be a big advantage, and Takuma Sato is making that work in his Onyx. He's bearing down on Simona Di Silvestro, and he wants second place out of this race. And as you say, Tom, Paul di Resta, he's now on the fresher tyres from his unscheduled pit stop. He only lost out one position as a result of that, but now that he's on the fresher tyres, he's closing down on Tom Christensen, and maybe he can take back that 5th place again and get away with it.
I think he lost 2, because I think he was in 4th place before he came in for that unscheduled stop, so I think he could get by Christensen, but it's probably going to be too late to get past Fittipaldi as well. But, you know, if he can get the hammer down and get by Christensen very, very soon, then he may have a chance.
Well, Fittipaldi is a further 16 seconds up the road from Christensen, so I believe you are right, Tom. Di Resta may well catch Tom Christensen for 5th place, but catching Fittipaldi, that's going to be a really tall order. We're now looking at Takuma Sato, who is less than 2 seconds behind the MasterCard Lola of Simona Di Silvestro. And he has driven a fantastic race today, Tom. He's been on an alternate strategy to everyone else, but he's made it work, and he is possibly set to come home with 2nd place here today.
What a fabulous result for Di Silvestro in her first outing. It may not count for the championship, given the way this race has gone, but it's nevertheless it will most definitely give her a confidence boost in the races to come. Now here's De La Rosa, the next man up front to be lapped is his teammate Amy Alguersuari, who is chasing after Robin Fines, and you'll have to tell me what the gap is, because I can't quite see what the graphic says from my end.
It's a gap of 2.9 seconds between Robin Fraines and Jaime Alguersuari. Alguersuari on the fresher tyres than Fraines, and looking to make that work as he wants to pick up a couple more points for the championship should this race count. We're down to 10 runners, so if this does count towards the championship, that will be every finisher scoring points. But yeah, will it count towards the championship? That is another matter that we need to discuss, as we've mentioned multiple times. De La Rosa now maintaining that gap to Di Silvestro, 16.8 seconds between the top two. Takuma Sato just under 2 seconds behind Di Silvestro, and he's been closing in recently, but now he's got the gap down to around about 2 seconds. He's sort of staying there now. He's not really making enough headway to overtake the Swiss Miss.
No, and I think Di Silvestro has done very well to fend off Sato. I don't know where his pace has dropped, but that doesn't take anything away from Di Silvestro's performance. She's done very, very well from 5th on the grid, which is, you know, she got there on merit, and now she's in 2nd place, kept out of trouble, and on course for a really, really strong result here for the Swiss driver.
We're now riding on board with Pietro Fittipaldi. We haven't seen anything of him this race. I don't think I've picked him up on the TV cameras once. And yet he has kept himself out of trouble. He's survived all of the chaos. And he's running in 4th place at the moment. Now we have De La Rosa, Di Silvestro and Sato up ahead of him. And if anything should befall any of those 3 drivers, Fittipaldi could be on for a podium here without having really been on the TV at all. He's been very quiet. He's just gone about his business. And behind him, Di Resta has now overtaken Tom Christensen for 5th place. It's off camera, we haven't seen it. But Di Resta making those new tyres work, and he's back up into 5th place.
Yeah, so Di Resta making up for lost time, getting past the Minardi driver. And you can see there Di Silvestro coming up to lap Tom Cruise. Now this could have a say on the battle for 2nd. As you can see, De La Rosa coming through your picture. Just a few laps to go now. He's on lap 64, so there's 3 laps to go after this one, and it's on course for a victory, which you could argue he's got on merit, but he's had a lot of. Has he got a problem? I think he might have a problem.
He's got a throttle problem. So late drama for the Prost team. De La Rosa was looking to be a shoe-in for the victory, but he's had to pull into the pits, and that puts this lady here, Simona Di Silvestro, into the lead of the Vancouver Grand Prix. De La Rosa looking an odds-on favourite to win, but he's now had a throttle problem, has been forced to pit, and now this battle between Di Silvestro and Sato, which is now down to 1.5 seconds, is for victory, and Di Silvestro is stuck behind Tom Cruise. Di Silvestro not at all happy with the manner in front of her. She wanted to dispatch him as soon as possible. It looks like she is about to, getting a run down to the end of the long straight, and Sato is going to be looking to capitalise on this. The gap was 1.5 seconds coming across the start-finish line at the start of this lap. Di Silvestro is still behind Tom Cruise in the manner, and she's not at all happy. She senses a first ever Grand Prix victory here. She wants it, and she finally gets around Tom Cruise. Cruise locking up a bit there, and he's now going to hold up Takuma Sato. And yeah, he's really held up the Japanese driver there. Sato thought he might go for it, but Tom Cruise has cut him off. Sato is now the angry one. He wants to get through and get after this race victory. Di Silvestro has made her way through, and she's now only a couple of laps away from victory, and the gap between them is now down to 2.8. Tom Cruise not really helping matters at all there.
No, I mean, it wasn't very clever driving there from Tom, but he's finally got out of the way now of Sato, but he's lost a lot of time to the race leader, and that will give Di Silvestro the breath of fresh air she needs to keep hold of the lead. And she's got 2 laps to go now, including this one, and she looks on course for an unlikely victory.
So 2.9 seconds between Di Silvestro and Sato with only a couple of laps left to go. We'll have to wait and see how much Takuma Sato can take out of that through the next sector. And it's still around about 2.9, so Sato has made his way through past Cruise, but hasn't really set off after Simona like he should do. So unless anything happens to the Mastercard Lola, it looks like Simona Di Silvestro, in her debut Grand Prix in the Grand Prix World Series, is going to take victory for the Mastercard Lola team. We're now starting the last lap, and Sato has got the gap down to 2.7 seconds, which, Tom, is not enough.
No, it's not enough. I think Di Silvestro's got the race in the way, and De La Rosa setting a new fastest lap, a 1 minute 4.5. So, you know, light fuel load, fresh tyres, you know, at least he's going to get a point for the fastest lap, nevertheless.
I mean, it must be absolutely gutting for you, Tom, seeing your driver drop out of the lead like that, but it might not count for anything in the end anyway. So we're now on the final lap. De La Rosa is down to less than 10 seconds behind the lead, but now we're on the last lap. He's going to run out of time to make up that difference. Takuma Sato, he's had a real chance of winning this race today, making the alternate strategy work, but he's just going to fall short. We're now into the final sector of the race. Di Silvestro is on course for a famous victory here today, and we're looking at Takuma Sato, but up ahead of the Japanese driver. Simona Di Silvestro crosses the line to win the Vancouver Grand Prix. A fantastic drive there from Di Silvestro, fully deserved there, despite being handed the victory from De La Rosa's forced pit stop. You can't really deny that Di Silvestro drove a fantastic race today, and taking home a victory is a great result for her. Takuma Sato makes the alternate strategy work for second place. De La Rosa will be disappointed with third, but it's still a podium for the Spaniard. Pietro Fittipaldi in fourth place ahead of Paul Di Resta. Here is Jaime Alguersuari getting a bit crossed up through the final chicane, but he's going to come across the line in 8th place behind Robin Fraines, who's made up for his earlier electrical problem to take home 7th place. Mika Salo will be 9th, and Tom Cruise, in his one and only Grand Prix outing, will pick up a point in 10th place.
Yeah, a very good showing there from Tom Cruise, kept out of trouble all the way through. You have to feel for De La Rosa, because he had the race in his pocket until that throttle problem. But Simona Di Silvestro has been amazing. She's done absolutely fantastic in Vancouver, and a well-deserved winner.
Well, here are the final results. Di Silvestro wins ahead of Sato and De La Rosa. Pietro Fittipaldi in 4th ahead of Paul Di Resta. Tom Christensen in a Minardi taking home 6th place ahead of Fraines, Alguersuari, Solo, and Tom Cruise bringing home a point but a lap down in the manner. And then the retirements: Buemi, Verstappen, Hartley, Albon, Magnussen, Dixon, Kobayashi, Nakajima, DaCosta, Lotterer, Gordon, Larini, and then Verne, Hulkenberg, Whincup, and Calderon all taken out at the last corner. And the fastest lap in that the first corner, sorry. And the fastest lap in that race went to Pedro De La Rosa, making the most of his pit stop later on to put on some fresh tyres and get that extra point for the fastest lap. But, Tom, as chaotic, as frantic, and I have to say as farcical as that race was, we've got a fantastic result in Simona Di Silvestro taking a victory for the Mastercard Lola team. but I don't think it's going to stand.
No, I just think there's too much in this race that shouldn't have happened to even think that it's not going to be null and void. I think it will end up being null and void from what we've seen. But at least, as I said before, we've learned something that it's about finding circuits that are suitable for Grand Prix racing, Topher. And clearly, from what we've seen from the three races, in fact, because we had one last year and the 2 races we've had here today, that Vancouver is not for the RML.
Well, this is something that we will have to discuss with all of our team managers following the conclusion of this broadcast. And we will update you with any news on our next broadcast, which might be the Taupo Grand Prix. It depends on whether we want to run another Canadian Grand Prix in place of this one. So we will keep everyone informed. But for now, thank you all for tuning in. It has been some fantastic racing, despite all of those pit lane issues. At the end of the day, we did get some fantastic races. We did get some brilliant strategic battles. And Tom, I think putting all the issues that we had aside, I think we can be very, very excited for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, minus the pit exit issues, I think from other rounds we've seen in the Grand Prix World Series last year, we've seen some fantastic action. So if you are tuned in for the first time into the RML and thought this race was a complete farce, this is not a sign of things to come. We will fix everything that's happened and make sure we go to venues that do not have these issues again and actually see some genuine racing.
And if you want to get a bit more of an idea of what the Grand Prix World Series is all about and what the Retro Racing Managers League is all about, you can have a look at any of our previous videos, all in the videos list on our YouTube channel. Or if you want to have a go yourself, if you want to become a team manager, get in touch with us, downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. Send us an email and we'll see if we can fit you in to any of our racing series. But for now, my name is Topher Smith. Thank you very much to Tom Kent for joining me in the commentary box today. We look forward to seeing you next time.